Chapter 46-95. All the heavenly demons in the training ground looked over, and realized that it was the low-tier heavenly demon who had just been conferred the title of Centurion by Lady Moji. "My lord, do you have any instructions?" The heavenly demon veteran stopped whipping and walked over to Mu Feng, bowing and nodding. Although Zhuowen was a new recruit, he was a low-tier heavenly demon who had been directly conferred the title of Centurion. His status was much higher than a veteran like him, so he naturally did not dare to be rude to Zhuowen. Zhuowen's expression was cold as he pointed at the scrawny heavenly demon who was curled up and shivering on the ground. "I want this heavenly demon. Do you have any objections?" "My lord, this underage heavenly demon's physique is too weak. He's far from the standard to join the army. He won't be of any use on the battlefield and will only be a burden to you." The heavenly demon veteran looked hesitant, but he still bowed and suggested to Zhuowen, "Will he be a burden to me? Do you think I don't know that?" Zhuowen retorted coldly. The heavenly demon veteran was so scared that he trembled all over. He lowered his head and did not dare to speak anymore. The other heavenly demons who were watching the show kept quiet out of fear, not daring to say a word. "Get up and come with me." Zhuowen pointed at the scrawny heavenly demon lying on the ground and said coldly. The scrawny heavenly demon stood up and looked at Zhuowen with fear and hope in his eyes. He quickly followed. He was a clever heavenly demon. How could he not know that this lord had chosen him to join the army? "Thank you, my lord." The skinny heavenly demon hurriedly caught up and bowed to Zhuowen. "Come with me." Zhuowen did not even turn his head as he continued walking out of the training ground. He had chosen this scrawny heavenly demon because he was Mo Shuji, who had taken the initiative to be his tour guide in Burning Heaven Star City. Of course, he had chosen Mo Shuji because he felt that the latter was a promising talent. Although Mo Shuji was an immature heavenly demon, his physique and strength were weaker than an adult heavenly demon. However, this child's willpower was extremely firm, and he acted decisively and courageously. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to talk to the superior Skyfiend Zhuowen. Ordinary heavenly demons would not dare to do such a thing, but Mo Shuji had done it. Walking out of the training field, Zhuowen was led by the heavenly demon soldier to the group of ordinary heavenly demons who had passed the test. "This is the Centurion appointed by Lady Mog. At the same time, he will choose 99 of you to be his personal guards." The heavenly fiend soldier glanced at the group of ordinary heavenly fiends who were lying on the ground. Disdain appeared in the depths of his eyes as he shouted coldly. Instantly, the ordinary heavenly demons stood up straight and looked at Zhuowen with hopeful eyes. When they joined the army, they were not like Mo Shuji, who wanted to make a name for themselves. Most of them thought that joining the army would allow them to earn a living. At this time, choosing a kind and good leader was what they wanted the most. Although Zhuowen looked cold, he gave them a good feeling. Many ordinary heavenly demons wanted to be under Zhuowen's command. Zhuowen glanced at the group of heavenly demons and found that there were close to 1,000 of them. He was too lazy to choose carefully and casually chose 99 heavenly demons. His purpose in joining the army was not to fight for the heavenly demons, but to sneak into the primordial gods' side through the war of gods and demons. As soon as the war began, Zhuowen would immediately start running. Who cared if he fought or not? The 99 heavenly demons who were chosen were all delighted. They all nodded and bowed to Zhuowen, trying their best to curry favor. The heavenly demons who were not chosen were all disappointed. "This is my first choice. He's called Mo Shuji. If I'm not around in the future, listen to him, understand?" Zhuowen pointed at Mo Shuji and sternly scolded the 99 heavenly demons. "Yes, yes, yes. Rest assured, my lord, we will follow you and Mo Shuji's lead in the future." The 99 heavenly demons nodded. Although they were surprised by how weak Mo Shuji was, they did not dare to disobey Zhuowen's orders. "My lord, this responsibility is too heavy. I'm still inexperienced. Emoshuji was very nervous. He did not expect Zhuowen to give him such an important task. This surprised and delighted him, but more than that, he was puzzled. He was not related to the lord in front of him, so why did the latter seem to take special care of him? My lord, since you've chosen, I'll bring you to the tent first. The war between gods and devils is about to begin. In the following period of time, you have to spend some time to properly train these soldiers. The heavenly demon soldier smiled at Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and led Emoshuji and the other heavenly demons to the tent. The tent was quite a distance away from the training ground. After arriving, Zhuowen found that it was a huge open space. On the open space there were many spacious tents. The moment Zhuowen saw these tents, the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. These tents were simply too lousy. They were simply casually set up. Who set up these tents? Zhuowen could not help but look at the heavenly demon soldier and ask. Naturally, it was set up by the best heavenly demon in the city lord's mansion. Isn't it exquisite? My lord, please follow me. Your tent is here. The celestial demon soldier said proudly and brought Zhuowen to a corner of the room. The tent in this position was even worse. It was full of holes. How was it any different from not having a tent? Zhuowen looked helpless. No wonder Ma Yujie said that other than their natural strength, the other skills of these heavenly demons were really lousy. Now, he had finally seen it for himself. My lord, if there's nothing else, I won't disturb you. After saying that, the heavenly demon soldier cupped his hands at Zhuowen and left. Next, Zhuowen reorganized the 100 heavenly demons under his command. In his mind, he recalled the battle formations of the human side. After some thought, he decided to teach Emoshuji about the battle formations. Their team could be said to be cannon fodder. The reason he taught them the array formation was to increase the survival rate of this team. These battle formations had been tested and could be used to increase one's battle strength in battle. Although he could completely ignore everything and leave when the battle began, he still could not bear to do so. Although gods and demons were at odds, war was never the fault of these ordinary heavenly demons. They were also victims. The ones who were truly at fault were the higher-ups of the heavenly demons who started the war and the ambitious heavenly demon king. Rise, the people suffer. Fall, the people suffer. Whether they won the war or not, the ones who suffered the most would always be those who were born at the bottom. Emoshuji, come here. Zhuowen beckoned Emoshuji over, and the latter hurriedly ran over. Before the battle, I will teach you a set of battle technique. This battle technique requires the 100 of you to work together to form a formation. Zhuowen slowly explained, passing some of the battle techniques in his mind to Emoshuji so that he could train these soldiers. During this time, he had to train Emoshuji to be independent. This way, after he left, he could quickly shoulder the burden alone and increase his survival rate. Chapter 46-96. Only by establishing the authority of us centurions can we better command them. Let them be obedient to us. The three-horned heavenly demon spoke to Zhuowen as if he was a senior teaching a junior. If you are not used to it, how about I teach these recruits a lesson for you? As he spoke, the three-horned heavenly demon glanced at Emoshuji and the other recruits behind Zhuowen. The ruthlessness in his eyes intensified, and there was even a trace of killing intent. Zhuowen naturally felt the evil intentions in the three-horned heavenly demon's eyes. This person was obviously using the excuse of helping him teach the recruits to kill his recruit. No need. I will teach my soldiers myself. Zhuowen said indifferently. I have fought in several battles, and my battle experience is much richer than yours. You just joined the army, so what do you know? Let me teach you. The three-horned heavenly demon did not care and continued to look at the recruits behind Zhuowen. He did not care about Zhuowen at all. Obviously, in his eyes, although Zhuowen was also an inferior heavenly demon, he was still a recruit and was the easiest to bully. Scram! Zhuowen suddenly raised his head, and a scarlet light burst out from his eyes. A terrifying demonic aura swept over like a tide. The three-horned heavenly demon's pupils shrank, and he could not help but stop in his tracks. He looked at Zhuowen in horror. Although the demonic aura released by Zhuowen was still the aura of an inferior heavenly demon, it was much more powerful and terrifying than most inferior heavenly demons. This is a guy who is about to become a middle heavenly demon. Are you kidding me? This guy actually chose to join the army. The three-horned heavenly demon trembled as he stared at Zhuowen in horror. The moment Zhuowen released his terrifying demonic aura, it immediately caused a commotion in the camp. One by one, the centurions stopped their actions of showing off. Their scarlet eyes were all looking at Zhuowen's tent. They all felt the terror of the demonic aura, and their eyes were filled with fear and dread. If you dare to take another step forward, I will kill you. Zhuowen sat cross-legged, unmoving like a mountain. His tone was cold and merciless, filled with cruel killing intent. The three-horned heavenly demon stood where he was, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. His entire body was soaked in sweat. He had indeed felt the terrifying killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes. He didn't doubt in the slightest that if Zhuowen made a move, he probably wouldn't be a match for him. However, he was very unwilling to retreat just like that. If he retreated, then where would his face be? Crash! Mu Feng stood up abruptly. At this moment, his demonic might seem to have become even more terrifying, causing many of the ordinary heavenly demon recruits to be so scared that they were trembling on the ground. The three-horned celestial demon sighed in his heart. Suddenly, he cupped his fists at Zhuowen and smiled bitterly. You win. I won't meddle in your affairs. As he spoke, the three-horned heavenly demon faced Zhuowen and slowly retreated. He was constantly on guard against Zhuowen attacking him. Chapter 46-97. For the next period of time, Zhuowen basically stayed in the vicinity of the camp, either cultivating the limitless devil scripture or teaching the new soldiers under his command battle technique. Mo Suji's comprehension was extremely good and could always draw inferences from one case, which surprised Zhuowen. During this period of time, he had come into contact with many heavenly demons and knew that Magatama's vitality was terrifying, but his comprehension was extremely poor. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to not even be able to set up a tent. However, Mo Suji was different. Although he was an ordinary heavenly demon, his comprehension was higher than most heavenly demons. He was also the first heavenly demon to fully comprehend the combat techniques and gave his own opinion. This made Zhuowen think more highly of Mo Suji. With Mo Suji's help, Zhuowen was much more free. The combat technique training was basically taught by Mo Suji, and Zhuowen only needed to sit cross-legged in front of the camp to cultivate. He realized that cultivating the limitless demon scripture in the primordial heavenly demon's territory was like adding wings to a tiger. Especially the demon domain, its potential seemed to be limitless and could continuously become stronger. Finally, the battle between gods and demons was about to begin. Outside the camp, a female heavenly demon strode in, followed by a group of elite heavenly demon soldiers. The city lord summons you. Gather at the training field immediately. Follow me now. This female heavenly demon was Mog. She looked around, and her indifferent voice slowly sounded, her voice resounding and impassioned. In an instant, the centurions in the camp immediately stood up, reorganized their troops, and left with Mog. Zhuowen was naturally no exception. He led Mo Suji and a group of new soldiers and silently followed behind. Soon, everyone arrived at the training field and stood still. On the high platform in front of the training field, Burning Heaven Star City's city lord Mo Yongchang stood with his hands behind his back, his sharp gaze sweeping across everyone. The battle between gods and demons is about to begin. Everyone is about to step onto the battlefield. If anyone is afraid now, you can choose to leave. Otherwise, once you step onto the star path, there will be no turning back. Mo Yongchang's voice was filled with majesty. Although it was not loud, it shook everyone's ears. The training field was silent, and no one proposed to withdraw or leave. Since no one wants to leave, then I will order someone to open the star orbit and send you to the northern and southern star region's border battlefield. Your commander this time is MOG. Once you're on the battlefield, listen to her commands. Mo Yongchang pointed at the female heavenly demon beside him. After confirming that everyone understood, he turned around and left. Soon, only MOG and the Sky Missouri soldiers on the practice field were left. Come with me. The star path has been activated, and we can enter the border battlefield at any time. After MOG finished speaking, she walked out of the martial arts practice field without looking back. The Sky Demon soldiers in the practice field naturally followed closely behind and left the City Lord's mansion. The entrance to the star path was not in the City Lord's mansion, but in an inner city in the north of the Burning Heaven Star City. Since the star orbit was an extremely important object, the inner city in the north was naturally heavily guarded and heavily guarded. The group of Sky Demon soldiers went through layers of inspection before they entered the core of the northern inner city. In the center of the inner city there was an incomparably huge and dazzling star. The top of this star was connected to a long rainbow that pierced through the sky, rushing into the unknown depths of the horizon. This is the star orbit? Zhuowen raised his head to look at the boundless rainbow and the dazzling star. He immediately guessed that this was the star orbit. The immemorial gods are indeed powerful. Their creativity is much stronger than us heavenly demons. This star orbit is so intricate that it's impossible for us heavenly demons to create it. Mo Shuji raised his head to look at the star orbit, his eyes filled with passion and reverence. Activate the star orbit. Emoji stood in front of the star orbit and shouted in a loud voice. Suddenly, heavenly demons in long robes appeared under the stars. These heavenly demons knelt on both sides of the star orbit, holding something like a crystal ball in their right hand. Their left hand formed a seal as they chanted. Soon, the crystal balls in the hands of these heavenly demons emitted a pitch-black light. Streams of demonic energy shot into the sky and surged into the star orbit. The originally resplendent and colorful star was immediately enveloped by endless black fog, instantly turning into an incomparably pitch-black star. It looked extremely strange. Ka. Blazing black light shot out from the pitch-black star and sprinkled down, forming a huge black staircase. At the end of the black staircase was the star orbit that had been dyed black by the demonic creatures. The star orbit has been activated. A female heavenly demon in the lead said with a calm expression. Then, she slowly retreated with the other heavenly demons. Let's go. Emoji waved her hand and stepped onto the staircase. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared from everyone's sight. Whoosh. Once Emoji left, the group of soldiers stepped onto the staircase and instantly disappeared from the black staircase. Sir, let's go too. Mo Suji was eager to give it a try. Let's go. Zhuowen nodded. He also wanted to see what the star orbit was. He wanted to see if it was similar to the teleportation array in the chaotic stars. The moment he stepped onto the staircase, he felt the world spinning around him. The starlight around him was hazy and quickly flew by. In his eyes, it turned into blurry rays of light that looked dazzling. This isn't teleportation. This is rapid travel. The moment Zhuowen stepped onto the star orbit, he understood that the principle of the star orbit was completely different from the teleportation array. The teleportation array was a jump between spaces, while the star orbit followed a predetermined path and flew through space at an extremely fast speed. It seemed that the star orbit was slower than the teleportation array, but in fact it was much faster. The star orbit was so fast that it was like teleportation. Zhuowen didn't even have time to react before he arrived at his destination. As soon as Zhuowen's feet touched the ground, he looked ahead and found that he was surrounded by an open space surrounded by mountains. On the open space, there were scattered tents and countless heavenly demon soldiers patrolling around. Emoji stood at the front of the group. Similarly, when she saw the large number of heavenly demon soldiers in the open space around her, her expression changed. The scale of this battle of gods and demons was the largest of all the battles that Emoji had participated in. The number of heavenly demon soldiers alone exceeded 10 million. Regardless of victory or defeat, many heavenly demons and primordial gods would die. Soldiers, from which city are you from? At the entrance of the tent tribe, 2 heavenly demon soldiers walked over. They glanced at Emoji and the many recruits behind her, and asked indifferently, "We are from Burning Heaven Star City. I am the representative of Burning Heaven Star City this time," Emoji said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Come with me. I will take you to see the deputy commander. He will arrange for you." One of the burly heavenly demon soldiers nodded and led Emoji and the others into the tent tribe. The tent was in the center of the tribe. It was much sturdier and larger than the other tent. This tent was where the commander, deputy commander, and other higher-ups of the 10 million heavenly demon soldiers rested. The heavenly demon soldier entered the tent and reported. Then, a huge heavenly demon with a ferocious armor walked out of the tent. Chapter 46-98. Are you the representative of Burning Heaven Star City this time? The giant heavenly demon was much taller than ordinary heavenly demons. He stood there like a small mountain, looking down at Emoji in front of him. Emoji greets the deputy commander. Emoji hurriedly bowed, her eyes full of respect. No need to be so polite. My name is Emowuba, and the soldiers call me Commander Ba. You can call me that too. Emowuba looked quite forthright. His voice was like thunder, causing the surroundings to explode and the earth to shake. Many heavenly demon recruits were so shocked that they trembled, their eyes full of awe. All right. This token is your identity for this war. It records the location of your tents and your arrangement after the war begins. When you arrive at your tents, you can start training. The war between gods and demons is about to begin. You can't be careless. Emowuba took out a black token and solemnly handed it to Emoji, reminding her with a serious expression. Don't worry, Commander Ba. We definitely won't dare to be careless. We will go all out in this war. Emoji hurriedly cupped her hands and bowed. Men, bring them to the tents. Emowuba nodded in satisfaction and called a young heavenly demon soldier. After giving some instructions, he returned to the tents. Under the leadership of the young heavenly demon soldier, Emoji led a group of recruits to their tents. Their tents were located at the edge of the open space, at the foot of a mountain range. The war is about to begin. After the war begins, everyone will have to resign themselves to fate. Also, in order to win the war, we must do whatever it takes. If our companions die, then eat them and let them be with us, increasing our strength. Emoji's gaze was solemn as she continued. This way, we can carry the will and faith of our companions until we win the war. Do you understand? Zhuowen stood in the crowd, silently listening to Emoji's lecture. He had long known that heavenly demons had the custom of devouring their own kind. After many old heavenly demons died, they would ask young heavenly demons to devour them. From their point of view, this was a very normal custom. Those who were devoured would still be with them and had not truly passed away. It was the same for the heavenly demons in every war. If their comrades died, they would divide and devour them to strengthen their own demonic powers. Zhuowen found it hard to adapt to this custom after learning about it. It had to be said that the difference between skyfiends, humans, and primordial gods was just too great. Many actions that were considered deviant in the eyes of the heavenly demons were normal. After the lecture, Mog dismissed the new soldiers and summoned their respective centurions to instruct them on the specifics of the battle. Moj, you stay. After the centurions left, Moji suddenly called out to Zhuowen. Lord Moji, what are your orders? Zhuowen asked in a low voice. I heard that you're teaching your new recruits battle tactics? It's impossible for a heavenly demon to know that combat technique. Why do you know it? Emoji asked as she stared sharply at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was not in a hurry. When he was teaching combat technique, he knew that this matter could not be concealed. Lord Moji, I once accidentally found the ruins of a human cultivator and found many things related to the human race. I also found the combat technique from there. I'm quite interested in it and have been studying it. As Zhuowen spoke, he took out many divine weapons, formations, and books related to the human race from the outside world and placed them in front of Mog. Mog glanced at them casually without any interest and said, I see. I don't object to you studying things related to the human race, but you have to know that the human race is a low-level creature. Only the weak need these supplementary things. We Magatama Celestial have terrifying life force, so why would we need these things to help us? Mog did not think too much about it and left after a few words of advice. Among the heavenly demons there were many things that studied the human race and primordial gods. Therefore, Mog did not feel that there was anything wrong with Zhuowen's excuse. Several days later, the great war of gods and demons finally began. In the endless plains, the heavenly demon army began to gather. At the front of the army, several imposing and terrifying demonic figures hovered in midair, looking down at the densely packed heavenly demon army. The demonic figure in the lead was abnormally tall and was surrounded by a dense demonic mist. A pair of scarlet eyes were faintly discernible in the rolling demonic fog, as if they could see straight into one's heart. The tall and mighty demonic martial tyrant was standing silently behind this demonic shadow, his eyes filled with respect and fear. I am the general of this war. My name is Mo Wuing. This war is very crucial. If we can conquer that natural moat, our heavenly demon army will be able to enter the 7 constellations constellation in the north and reach the hinterland of the primordial gods. If we can win, the primordial stars will belong to us heavenly demons, and the primordial gods will disappear from the world. The future will begin to belong to us heavenly demons. Mo Wuing hovered in midair, looking down at the countless heavenly demons below. His voice was soft, but it reached straight into everyone's hearts. Everyone could hear him clearly, as if his voice had risen from their hearts. It's Mo Wuing, one of the 36 demon generals under the heavenly demon king. He's a real big shot with the strength of a true demon. In the heavenly demon army, countless heavenly demons whispered, their eyes filled with reverence. Zhuowen listened quietly. He finally knew Mo Wuing's background. The strength of heavenly demons was divided into ordinary, inferior, intermediate, and superior. Above superior heavenly demons was true demons. True demons were extremely terrifying, comparable to the primordial gods of the 28 constellations. It was said that they had an immortal body and were extremely difficult to deal with. Above true demons was the heavenly demon king. However, the heavenly demon king was extremely mysterious. Even the 36 demon generals had not seen his true appearance. Zhuowen glanced at Mo Wuing, then looked into the distance. At the end of the mountain range, there was a huge moat that separated 2 huge mountains. In this trench, endless golden clouds were rolling. Within the clouds, there seemed to be huge beasts swimming around, stirring up waves of clouds. It was a spectacular sight. Zhuowen looked at the golden clouds, his gaze turning serious. How could he not see that this golden cloud was actually an extremely terrifying killing formation? This killing array was far more powerful than any killing array he had seen in the primal chaos starry sky. This is the golden cloud dragon killing array. Brother Joie, if you go in, you'll die without a doubt. Or rather, most of the heavenly demon army will die inside. Ma Yuji's voice suddenly rang in his mind. Mo Wuiying is planning to use the lives of millions of heavenly demon army to forcefully break through the golden cloud dragon killing array. Zhuowen frowned. Naturally, he knew what Mo Wuiying was planning. Is there any way to avoid the golden cloud dragon killing array? Zhuowen asked with a frown. This array only targets heavenly demons. Once you enter the array, immediately remove your heavenly demon aura. This way, the golden cloud dragon killing array will not target you. Ma Yujie said solemnly. Chapter 46-99. Soldiers, charge with me. The heavenly demon king hovered in the air, waving his hand as he gave the order. Immediately, the heavenly demon army charged out in a mighty manner. They were like a surging torrent, and their might was unstoppable. The heavenly demon king, Mo Wuba, and the rest of the heavenly demon army's higher-ups were still hovering in the air, looking down at the heavenly moat. They had no intention of entering. Mo Shuji, if you trust me, find a chance to leave after entering the heavenly moat. Zhuowen whispered to Mo Shuji beside him as he followed the group forward. After knowing the heavenly demon king's intention, he knew that the heavenly demon army was probably just cannon fodder. Their goal was to break the golden cloud dragon array with numbers. Mo Shuji followed closely behind Zhuowen. When he heard Zhuowen's words, he was stunned. Lord Mo Zhuo, do you want me to be a deserter? Mo Shuji frowned. This battle is meaningless. You're all just cannon fodder. If you trust me, listen to me. That's all I have to say. After Zhuowen finished speaking, he did not say anything else and continued to rush forward. He had only met Mo Suji once, and he had already done his best to warn him to this extent. As for what choice Mo Shuji would make, it was up to him. Mo Shuji followed behind silently. His eyes were gloomy, and no one knew what he was thinking. When the heavenly demon army rushed into the heavenly moat, the vast and endless heavenly moat was terrifyingly quiet. Follow me. The deputy commander said that the Archean god army is in the heavenly moat. We must be careful at all times. Emoji was leading the heavenly demons in Burning Sky Star City. Her voice was loud and clear as she shouted. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a golden pillar of light shot toward her and instantly pierced through her head. Plop! Emoji's headless corpse fell limply to the ground. Black blood spurted out as her body convulsed violently. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He could feel a terrifying power from the pillar of light. That power was not something he could resist. If he was hit, he would definitely die. Whoosh! 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 Countless similar pillars of light appeared in the natural moat in an instant, sweeping toward the heavenly demon army. In an instant, the entire heavenly demon army was in chaos, and many of them suffered heavy casualties. Brother Zhuo, don't go north, go east. Quickly get away from the heavenly demon army and disperse the heavenly demon aura on your body. In his mind, Ma Yujie's crazy voice suddenly sounded, causing Zhuowen to sober up a lot. Zhuowen activated his movement technique and dashed towards the east like a bolt of purple lightning. He knew very well that those terrifying light pillars were probably the result of the activation of the great golden cloud dragon formation at the heavenly moat. That level of formation was simply not something he could contend against. He had to escape. Zhuowen dispersed his demonic presence without even thinking after breaking away from the army of the celestial demons. He revealed his original appearance and continued to head east. Originally, there was a pillar of light aimed at Zhuowen, but after Zhuowen revealed his human appearance, it actually changed direction and went toward the other celestial demons. Zhuowen fled in a panic. He kept heading east and found that the golden fog was getting thicker and thicker. At the same time, the surrounding noise had completely disappeared, and it became extremely quiet. Finally, when the golden fog was so thick that it was almost invisible, Zhuowen stopped. He looked around and found that it was all extremely thick golden fog. Not only could he not see clearly, but even his divine sense could not penetrate the golden fog. Brother Zhuo, you can let us out now. This is the safe zone of the great golden cloud dragon formation. I think the people from the primordial gods will come looking for us soon. Ma Yujie's voice sounded again, but this time it was much calmer. Zhuowen nodded and released Ma Yujie and Purple Jade. The three of them stood in place, motionless, waiting silently. Not long after, several footsteps sounded from the depths of the golden fog. Then, Zhuowen found that the golden fog in front of him gradually dissipated, parting to form a wide path. 3 figures emitting golden light slowly walked over. When they approached, Zhuowen discovered that the 3 of them were covered in golden armor. Their auras were vast and unparalleled, like 3 suns in the sky. The 3 of them stopped dozens of meters in front of Zhuowen, and their gazes fell on Ma Yujie and Purple Jade. Same race. The leader was burly, like a god who had descended to the mortal world. He had long golden hair and asked in surprise. Ma Yujie hurriedly cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Brothers, we're all of the same race. Primordial gods, can you take us to the other side of the heavenly moat?" The primordial god did not speak. His gaze passed Ma Yujie and Purple Jade and landed on Zhuowen. This person is not of the same race, but a human. His aura is so weak. Could he be a human from the chaotic cosmos? The primordial god asked indifferently. Zhuowen did not hide it and said with cupped hands, "That's right. You're lying. Kill him." The primordial god suddenly shouted and waved at the 2 behind him. Immediately, the 2 primordial gods strode over and rushed toward Zhuowen. "Wait." Ma Yujie and Purple Jade hurriedly blocked in front. Why are you protecting this person? This person is clearly lying. He must be a spy from the heavenly demons." The leader of the primordial gods frowned slightly, feeling that Ma Yujie and Purple Jade were unreasonable, protecting an outsider. "Brother, what he said isn't false. I came up from the chaotic cosmos with him," Ma Yujie said helplessly. "Impossible. Ever since the heavenly demons invaded the primordial star system, the humans of the chaotic cosmos can't ascend to the primordial star system at all. How did you come up?" The primordial god shook his head. "We came in through the primordial tree," Ma Yujie said indifferently. "The primordial tree? But that requires the primordial stone. Could it be that you—" The primordial god seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes widened as he looked at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. "You guessed right. We used the primordial stone to open the passage to the primordial tree." Ma Yujie nodded and said seriously, "I can spare his life for now, but you're still too deliberate. I've decided to bring you to the 7 constellations constellation in the north first. When the time comes, the constellation gods will decide." The primordial god hesitated for a moment and waved his hand. The 2 primordial gods who wanted to kill Zhuowen put away their weapons. "We'll detain the 2 of you for now. You'd better not resist," the primordial god said indifferently. Zhuowen frowned slightly, but when he saw Ma Yujie shaking his head at him, he could only allow the 2 primordial gods to restrain his hands. In fact, he also understood that he was too weak. Even if he wanted to resist, it was probably not very likely. "Let's go. Don't worry, as long as you're cleared of suspicion, you'll be accepted by us again." The primordial god's expression eased a lot when he saw that the 2 of them were so cooperative. As for the cub, it silently followed behind Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. Its big watery eyes were a little red. Chapter 4700. Roar. After walking for about half an hour, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded from the depths of the blazing golden clouds. The dragon roar was getting closer and closer, and the golden clouds in front of them parted to both sides. Zhuowen's pupils constricted as he saw a huge golden dragon slowly sink into the middle of the parted golden clouds and appear in front of everyone. This is the array spirit of the golden cloud dragon array. Only under the array spirit's guidance can we leave this array. The leader of the primordial gods glanced at the surprised Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others and patiently explained. After interacting with each other along the way, the three primordial gods' doubts about Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others gradually disappeared. After chatting for a while, they learned each other's names. The leader of the primordial gods was called Hongguang, and he was an intermediate primordial god. The ranks of the primordial gods were similar to those of the primordial celestial demons. They were also divided into ordinary, inferior, intermediate, and superior. Above the superior primordial gods were the 28 constellation gods. The constellation gods were stronger than the true demons of the primordial celestial demons, but they were not as strong as the celestial demon kings. Zhuowen was quite puzzled. Since the primordial celestial demons had a celestial demon king who ruled over them, why didn't the primordial gods have a celestial king who ruled over them? However, since Hongguang did not say much, Zhuowen did not ask further. Even Ma Yujie was secretive about this matter. In any case, judging from their performance, there was no celestial king on the primordial god side, or perhaps there was a problem. Let's go up. Hongguang called out and stepped onto the dragon's head first. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade stepped onto the dragon's body with the help of the other two primordial gods. Roar! The golden cloud dragon let out an earth-shattering roar and rushed up to the sky. As they climbed higher and higher, Zhuowen looked down and his vision gradually became clearer. Countless heavenly demon army below were fighting with many dazzling golden figures. Countless beams of light shot out and annihilated countless heavenly demons. Zhuowen looked over and found that those dazzling golden figures were the primordial gods' soldiers. What shocked him was that the primordial gods' soldiers were far fewer than the heavenly demon army. Even with the power of the golden cloud dragon array, they were only evenly matched with the heavenly demon army. Sigh. The primordial gods sighed now. The number of soldiers who can fight is dwindling. If not for the heaven's moat and the golden cloud dragon formation, we might not even be able to defend the 7 constellations galaxy in the north. Hongguang also lowered his head to look at the battlefield below. His fists were tightly clenched, and his eyes were filled with resentment and regret. Jin Yunlong's speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he crossed the heavenly moat and arrived at the other side. God celestial 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 demon army, celestial celestial heavenly celestial 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 celestial. Many primordial divine warriors were standing in front of the cannons, controlling them to fire down fearsome cannon fire that resembled beams of light. Streaks of light converged to form a universe of light that blasted toward the battlefield below, blasting the heavenly demons into smithereens. When Jin Yunlong reached the top of the wall, many primordial god soldiers looked up. When they saw that it was Hongguang, they looked away and continued to fire at the golden cloud dragon formation. Soon, Jin Yunlong crossed the white jade wall and landed on the vast plain behind it. After Zhuowen and the rest descended, Jin Yunlong soared into the sky and returned to the heavenly moat. This is the camp of the ancient gods? Zhuowen raised his head to look at the countless magnificent palaces in front of him and asked in surprise. Yes, we built it temporarily, Hongguang said with a smile. The corners of Zhuowen's eyes twitched as he looked at the luxurious palaces in front of him and thought of the Heaven Devil Army's camp. The contrast between the two camps was really obvious. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. The identification of your identities and such will be left to the constellation god to decide. The one in charge of the war this time was Lord Constellation God. I'll take you to see him. Hongguang looked at Zhuowen and the other two, smiled, and led them to the tallest temple in the center of the camp. Of course, the shackles on Zhuowen's body were still there. As long as they were not cleared of suspicion, the shackles could not be removed. On the other hand, Zhuowen's pupils couldn't help but shrink when he heard the two words Zhen Su. If he remembered correctly, the Zhen constellation divine chariot on him was the masterpiece of this Zhen constellation divine chariot, right? The primordial slate was also made by this constellation god. Speaking of which, this constellation god seemed to have a unique hobby of inventing and making. Thinking of this, Zhuowen could not help but look at the rows of cannons behind him. He wondered if these cannons were also the work of this constellation god. Soon, under Hong Guang's lead, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Ziyu entered the tallest temple. The divine hall was extremely spacious and desolate, and he actually didn't see any attendants or soldiers all along the way. Finally, the group stopped in the deepest part of the temple. Here, there was a long staircase leading upwards, and at the end was a divine throne. However, there was no one on the divine throne. Lord Constellation God. This lowly one found two of his race and a human cultivator in the enemy's battlefield. Lord Constellation God, please come and make a decision. Hong Guang walked to the front of the divine throne, knelt on the ground, and respectfully asked for instructions. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the other two looked at each other, their hearts filled with strange expressions. There was clearly no one in this temple, so why was Hong Guang kneeling and bowing to the empty divine throne? The enemy discovered it? That's interesting. Suddenly, an ancient and low voice came from the divine throne. Zhuowen and the others looked over, only to see a short figure walk out from behind the divine throne. Little child? The moment Zhuowen saw this short figure clearly, his pupils could not help but constrict. This short figure was only about a meter tall. With his hair tied up in a bun, he looked like a 4 or 5-year-old child. However, this child had his hands behind his back like an old man, slowly walking to the front of the divine throne. With a light step, he jumped up and sat on the divine throne. Don't be rude. This is Lord Constellation, God of Constellation, hurry and kneel. Hong Guang hurriedly reminded in a low voice when he saw that Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others were stunned on the spot. No need for formalities. This old man hates this kind of red tape the most. Next time, you don't have to kneel and bow to me. How troublesome. Constellation God of Constellation waved his little hands repeatedly and said impatiently. Hong Guang stood up somewhat awkwardly and scratched his head. Only then did the child's gaze fall on Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade and said calmly, "These three are indeed of the same race and human race, not heavenly fiends in disguise." Hong Guang heaved a sigh of relief in his heart and said, "Then can we accept them back to the northern 7 constellation starfield?" "Of course. Don't you know that we're short of people? No matter how small a sesame seed is, it's still meat. Of course we have to accept the 3 of them." Constellation God of Constellation said impatiently. "Lord Constellation God of Constellation. This lowly one has something to report." Hong Guang cupped his hands again. "Day after day you're always so nosy. Say it." Constellation God of Constellation crossed his legs and said. "They said they came from the chaotic starfield." Before Hong Guang could finish, Constellation God of Constellation suddenly stood up and instantly appeared in front of Hong Guang. Chapter 4701. The immemorial star system has long been closed to the chaotic starry sky. How did you enter the immemorial star system? The constellation god stared at Zhuowen and Ma Yujie in disbelief. "Lord Constellation, we entered the immemorial star system through the primordial tree." Ma Yujie hurriedly cupped his fists. The constellation god narrowed his eyes and frowned. "Enter the immemorial star system through the primordial tree? Although this method works, there is a prerequisite. Could it be that you have collected 4 primordial stones?" Zhuowen and Ma Yujie looked at each other and nodded. This matter would be known sooner or later, so there was no need for them to hide it. No wonder. The constellation god nodded with a thoughtful look. Suddenly, his eyes fell on Zhuowen and carefully sized him up. You seem to have the aura of my item. The constellation god waved his sleeve lightly. Immediately, the divine chariot and the design hidden in the great world flew out of Zhuowen's control and appeared in the sky above the temple. Is this Lord Constellation's chariot? No, this divine chariot is much inferior to Lord Constellation's. Its aura is a little too weak. Hong Guang raised his head to look at the chariot in the sky, and could not help but reveal a look of surprise. The constellation god waved his right hand and summoned the design and chariot to his right. With a complicated look in his eyes, he said, I never thought that I would see this design again. You should have obtained the primordial stone slab, right? Zhuowen nodded and said, Yes. I entered the primordial stone slab in the chaotic starry sky and solved the puzzle inside, thus obtaining this design. Good, good, good. I believe that you are from the chaotic starry sky. Can you return this design to me? The constellation god looked at Zhuowen with a look of inquiry. Zhuowen was stunned. For some unknown reason, he actually sensed a strand of deep sorrow from the depths of the constellation god's eyes, and it seemed as if she'd recalled an extremely painful matter. Of course, this chariot originally belonged to Senior. Now is the time to return it to its rightful owner. Zhuowen cupped his fists and said. The constellation god nodded and returned the chariot to Zhuowen. He sighed softly and said, Hong Guang, take them to rest in the tent. I'm a little tired. Yes. Hong Guang did not dare to be negligent. He cupped his fists and led Ma Yujie and the others out of the temple. Sometimes fate is really wonderful. After Hong Guang and the others left, the constellation god gently stroked the design in his hand gently and sat down on his throne, a look in his eyes. Brother Hong Guang, what's wrong? Lord Constellation God? He doesn't seem to be in a good mood. After walking out of the temple, Ma Yujie asked with a face full of surprise. Hong Guang said in a low voice, Lord Zhen Su should have thought of someone when he saw the object. Sky, 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 sky. Sky, 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 God, God. God. Sky, sky, sky. His son is a famous rising star of our ancient star system. He is a true genius and has the potential to become the new constellation god in the future. Hong Guang said with a hint of admiration in his eyes. Clearly, he admired the son of the constellation god of Zhen constellation very much. The primordial slate has fallen into the primal chaos starry sky. Could it be? Zhuowen frowned. Yes. Lord Zhen Su's son was called Julian, and he had once fought against the true demon general of the primordial heavenly demons. Although he managed to injure the general, he was struck down from the primordial star system and his fate was unknown. Later on, Julian's life medallion completely shattered, which means that he should have died. What a pity! Hong Guang sighed regretfully at the mention of Julian. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie exchanged a glance. They finally knew who the primordial god who had fallen in the chaotic starry sky was. As it turned out, that ancient god's name was Julian, and he was the son of the constellation god. It was all thanks to Julian. Even though he had fallen, he had always protected the 100 territories of the outer realm, preventing them from being affected by the immeasurable calamity. 3 of you. You can stay in this side hall for the time being. After the battle has calmed down, we will bring you back to the city in the 7 constellations starfield. Hong Guang said with a smile. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the other 2 naturally agreed. Hong Guang left after giving a few more instructions. Wow! What a big house! After entering the side hall, Ziyu could not help exclaiming with an excited smile on her little face. Although it was called a side hall, it was extremely large. There were 2 floors inside, with a total of 8 rooms. Each room was decorated extremely beautifully. Our primordial gods are still the best. We know how to enjoy ourselves. Those heavenly demons are simply extremely crude. Even their tents are a mess. Ma Yujie said leisurely as he sat down on the soft seat in the central living room with a comfortable expression on his face. Zhuowen said worriedly, "Brother Ma, the current situation of the primordial gods is really not optimistic. As the saying goes, if the primordial gods keep defending passively, they won't be able to hold on for long." Hearing this, Ma Yujie's face suddenly turned gloomy. Sigh. This is also something that can't be helped. There are too many heavenly demons, and they are not afraid of death when fighting. They can also strengthen themselves by devouring their own kind. No matter how strong our primordial gods are, we will be exhausted to death by them, Ma Yujie said with a deep sigh. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. Speaking of which, he did not have a better way. The only thing he could do now was to cultivate. The energy in the primordial star system was much denser than the chaotic starry sky. Zhuowen's cultivation here was much more efficient than the chaotic starry sky. He was very clear that his current strength was too weak. Whether it was the matters in the primordial star system or the immeasurable calamity that was about to befall the lower realm, it was not something that he could contend with now. Time gradually passed. The battle between the gods and demons became more and more intense. Every day, a large number of injured primordial gods were transported back to the camp. The constellation god of the chariot constellations personally came out to command the battle. Even so, the number of injured was still increasing, like an endless tide. In the end, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were also dragged to do manual labor to treat the injured. Fortunately, Zhuowen's alchemy skills were quite strong. Under the guidance of some alchemists in the camp, he learned very quickly and was able to treat the injured independently. Zhuowen found that although the primordial gods were powerful, they were not as good as the human race in alchemy and alchemy. The reason why their healing effects were better than the human race was mainly because their medicinal herbs were extremely high-grade. The medicinal effects themselves were hundreds or thousands of times stronger than the divine medicines in the chaotic starry sky. Even if they did not need to be refined into divine pills, most injuries could be healed. If they could be refined into divine pills, they would be able to make better use of the medicinal power of these herbs and treat more injuries. However, although the primordial gods also had alchemists, they were all respected. Naturally, they would not easily come to the battlefield to refine divine pills for ordinary primordial gods. They also disdained to do so. Therefore, after understanding the characteristics of the herbs in the primordial star system, Zhuowen tried to refine divine pills himself. After several failures, he finally found the pattern and successfully refined them. Chapter 4702. This is a divine pill? Where did it come from? In the main hall, the constellation god held a pill with divine splendor in his right hand, his face full of surprise. This divine pill was given to him by the alchemist in the camp. But what puzzled him was that the alchemists of the immemorial gods were arrogant and never refined divine pills for the army. Why did they have divine pills in their camp? Moreover, he found that these divine pills were much weaker than the real immemorial divine pills, but they were indeed stronger than medicinal herbs. From this, it could be seen that the alchemist who refined this divine pill was not of a very high level, but this kind of low-level divine pill was actually enough for ordinary immemorial gods. Sir, it's that human cultivator who refined it. The alchemist was quite excited as he continued. Although this human cultivator's alchemy skills are much weaker than the real immemorial divine alchemists, his understanding of medicine is very thorough. Refining the divine herbs in our camp into pills has greatly increased the efficiency of medicinal herbs, and the healing effect is far better than medicinal herbs. The constellation god raised his eyebrows and said, "That human cultivator named Zhuowen is actually an alchemist. Quickly invite him over." Yes. The alchemist quickly bowed and left the main hall. After a while, the alchemist came in with Zhuowen. Greetings, Constellation God. Zhuowen cupped his hands and bowed to the child on the divine throne. You did well. You can actually refine the medicinal herbs in our camp into pills. May I know what level your alchemy skills are? The Constellation God showed a satisfied look and asked with a smile. 5th Heavenly Layer, Eternal Realm. Zhuowen did not hide it. 5th Heavenly Layer, Eternal Realm? The Constellation God's face was full of disbelief as he continued, Your alchemy skills are not high, but you can refine the divine herbs in the immemorial star system into pills. The lowest level of divine herbs in the immemorial star system was far from being refined by a 5th Heavenly Layer Eternal Realm alchemist, let alone refining them into divine pills. But this human youth in front of him had actually succeeded, which really made him feel a little incredulous. Now that I've figured out the medicinal theory, I can freely come up with the pill formulas and use them to refine new healing divine pills. Although my divine fire is too weak to refine the divine herbs of the immemorial star system, I can let the alchemists refine them. Then, I can match the corresponding divine pill formula. That's how divine pills are refined. Zhuowen cupped his fist at the Constellation God and explained with a smile. The herbs in the immemorial star system were of a much higher grade than those in the primal chaos starry sky. The divine fire within Zhuo Zhengwen's body was too low level. It was simply unable to completely refine these medicinal herbs into medicinal liquid, let alone refine them into pills. He basically stayed in the barracks to instruct those alchemists to refine pills. Although those alchemists had powerful divine flames in their bodies, their understanding of medicinal theory was very shallow. They had never systematically studied alchemy. With Zhuowen's guidance, the pharmacists in the barracks had a deeper understanding of alchemy, and their skills had also improved. Of course, Zhuowen also learned many things from these pharmacists. For example, the characteristics of many medicinal herbs in the ancient star system and how to combine them to bring out the best medicinal properties. So that's how it is. The Constellation God nodded, but he was still shocked. He knew that Zhuowen had never come into contact with the many divine herbs and alchemy books of the immemorial star system. Just by relying on his grasp of the medicinal properties of the herbs, he could create his own pill formulas and refine healing divine pills. This required extremely powerful talent and creativity. Thinking of this, the Constellation God took a deep look at Zhuowen and clicked his tongue in amazement. Zhuowen, you are very talented in alchemy. At the same time, thank you for refining divine pills for our barracks. After this battle is over, I will help you find some alchemy books. I hope they will be helpful to you. The gaze of the Zhen Constellation God towards Zhuowen became much gentler as he smiled. Many thanks, Lord Constellation. Zhuowen quickly cupped his fists and bowed. There was a touch of excitement in the depths of his eyes. He had long wanted to take a look at the alchemy books of the ancient star system. This way, his alchemy skills could be further improved. He might even surpass the 5th heaven of the eternal realm. Of course, Zhuowen also wanted to take a look at the array books. However, after thinking about it, he did not mention it. After all, the Constellation God had already promised to give him the alchemy book. If he also asked for the array books, he would be too greedy. He decided to find an opportunity later and go to other places in the ancient star system to see if there were any corresponding array book. Next, the Constellation God asked Zhuowen a few more questions and asked him to leave. Soon, only the Constellation God was left in the main hall. They can enter the ancient star system from the chaotic starry sky. They must have gathered all the primordial stones. The Constellation God's eyes were filled with complex emotions. He muttered to himself, I really didn't expect that the primordial tree would choose this human. I'm looking forward to seeing what this human will do when he reaches the ancient star system. Haitang Bookstore. What kind of performance will he have? After all, those who can be chosen by the primordial tree are not ordinary people. I hope this Zhuowen won't disappoint me too much. The battle between the gods and demons continued, and the fighting became more and more tragic. The entire golden cloud dragon array burst out with earth-shattering dragon roars at every moment. Countless shouts rose into the sky and spread to the other side of the heavenly moat. More and more wounded soldiers were transported back from the front line. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and the others followed the pharmacist and became busier. In addition to bandaging the wounds of the wounded, they also had to refine healing pills. They were so busy that they didn't even have time to rest. Ziyu was very obedient. When Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were busy, she took the initiative to help, which improved the efficiency of Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's treatment. Zhuowen's reputation in the barracks grew. Almost every soldier in the barracks knew of Zhuowen's great name. They all knew that a human cultivator called Zhuowen had appeared in the barrack. He had superb alchemy skills and refined divine pills for them, saving many wounded soldiers. Unknowingly, Zhuowen's prestige had increased greatly. In the barracks, he was only slightly above the constellation god. If Zhuowen walked around the barracks, all the primordial divine soldiers he encountered would greet him warmly. Some even saluted Zhuowen with gratitude. To them, doctors were like their parents. If it weren't for the divine pills refined by Zhuowen, they wouldn't have recovered so quickly. There were even some soldiers who were on the verge of death and couldn't be saved by divine medicine alone, but with the help of divine pills, their lives were saved. These people were the most grateful to Zhuowen. Every time they met Zhuowen, they would call him Sir. Chapter 4703. The War of Gods and Demons lasted for several months. Thanks to Mu Feng's help, the primordial gods gradually gained the upper hand by greatly increasing their chances of recovery. Although the heavenly demon army was massive and could grow stronger by devouring their own kind, the primordial gods had the advantage. However, the primordial gods had the advantage of time and place. Although they didn't have much of an advantage in terms of numbers, with the help of the Golden Cloud Dragon formation, they had a great advantage in this battle. On the battlefield of gods and demons, billowing demonic fog and blazing light collided as the two armies began a frenzied slaughter. At every moment, corpses of heavenly demons and primordial gods appeared, piling up into mountains. It was a spectacular sight. Thanks to the Golden Cloud Dragon array, the heavenly demon army was suppressed by the primordial god army. However, in an inconspicuous corner of the heavenly demon army, 100-man team was suppressing the primordial gods. After killing a dozen primordial gods, this 100-man team quietly retreated behind the heavenly demon army and continued to wait for an opportunity to strike. If one looked carefully, this 100-man team had great teamwork and a clear division of labor, greatly increasing their efficiency in battle. And the leader of this team was a thin and small Skyfiend. It was obvious at a glance that he was an underage Skyfiend. Lord Shuji. It's been several months, but we still haven't found a trace of Lord Emojua. We haven't even found his corpse. Do you think he was blasted to smithereens by that light cannon? In the group, many people were on guard against the battle around them. A heavenly demon soldier standing behind Emo Shuji grumbled. Slap. However, Emo Shuji slapped this heavenly demon soldier as soon as he finished speaking. If you dare say that again, you'll leave our team and be free to fight the other heavenly demon armies. Emo Shuji said with a vicious gaze. Lord Shuji. Don't be angry, I was just joking. The heavenly demon held his cheek and smiled fawningly. Their 100-man team was the most outstanding team in the heavenly demon army and had the highest survival rate. This was all because of the various tactics Zhuowen had taught them. Using these tactics, they had avoided all kinds of dangers and successfully survived. Emo Shuji did not listen to Zhuowen's advice. After charging into Jin Yunlong's group, he promptly withdrew. Later on, He realized that the formation set up by the primordial gods at the natural chasm was too powerful. The heavenly devil army was swept away and utterly routed. He knew then that Zhuowen's advice was right. Shadowless Mo had indeed treated them as cannon fodder. There was only one purpose for them to enter the Golden Cloud Dragon array, and that was to throw their lives away and help Shadowless Mo and the other heavenly devil experts find the array core. As long as they could find the eye of the formation, they would be able to destroy the Golden Cloud Dragon formation. By then, they would be able to conquer the heavenly moat. After guessing the truth, Mo Shuji also wanted to retreat, but he soon thought of Zhuowen. He wanted to find Zhuowen and leave with him. However, after searching for so long, they did not find any trace of Zhuowen. Many of the Sky Fiends in the group had already given up. If it were not for Mo Shuji's persistence, they would have already retreated. How could they still remain in the Golden Cloud Dragon array? Because Mo Shuji had obtained the essence of the tactics. He had been leading the group of 100 during this period of time and had overcome many difficulties. He had also successfully become the absolute leader of this group. The other Sky Fiends all obeyed his orders. Whenever a heavenly devil army member died, the group of Sky Fiends would leave the best heart for Mo Shuji. Too many heavenly devil army members had died this time. There was no lack of low-level Sky Fiends and a few mid-level Sky Fiends. They were not strong and had only survived by relying on their tactic. Therefore, they did not directly fight for the mid-level Sky Fiends' corpses. Instead, they locked onto the low-level Sky Fiends' corpses. As they continued to devour the low-level Sky Fiends, their group grew rapidly. Everyone in the group, including Mo Shuji, had undergone a metamorphosis and was evolving into a low-level Sky Fiend. After obtaining such a huge benefit, Mo Shuji was in no hurry to leave the battlefield. As long as he was cautious and alert enough, he would be able to assess the situation. In this battlefield, he would be able to reap endless benefit. This was because, in this battlefield, he could become stronger faster and advance towards the goal in his heart. The only thing he was disappointed about was that he could not find Mo Zhuo. He would never forget that the reason he was able to do so well in this battlefield was all because of the tactics Zhuowen had taught him. It could be said that Zhuowen was his second parent. He did not believe that Zhuowen would fall in this battlefield. Lord Shuji, I see a heavily injured mid-level Sky Fiend. He's fighting a mid-level immemorial god and has been hit several times by the light cannons. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for much longer. Suddenly, a Sky Fiend in the group exclaimed and looked to the left. Mo Shuji hurriedly walked forward. Indeed, in the air to the left, he saw a blood-soaked mid-level heavenly demon fighting a mid-level immemorial god. Although the mid-level immemorial god was also heavily injured, his injuries were much lighter than the mid-level Sky Fiend's. Without a doubt, the mid-level Sky Fiend would not be able to hold on for much longer. Watch carefully. Once this middle-class heavenly devil falls, we must snatch his corpse at the first moment. If there's no chance, we'll leave immediately. Understood. Mo Shuji ordered with a dignified expression. The group of Sky Fiends nodded solemnly. Pucci. Suddenly, the mid-level Sky Fiend's body was pierced by the immemorial god's light sword. His huge body was instantly torn apart, and ink-black blood sprayed into the air. As soon as the primordial god finished killing the mid-level Sky Fiend, another mid-level Sky Fiend flew over and engaged in a fierce battle with the primordial god. Go! Mo Shuji grasped the timing very well. With a low shout, he charged over with the group. In an instant, they snatched the mid-level Sky Fiend's remains. Even his heart was successfully taken. The rest of the body was taken by the other Sky Fiends. We can't stay here for long. Let's go. Mo Shuji was not greedy. After obtaining a portion of the Sky Fiend's body, he immediately retreated. After retreating to a certain distance, a group blocked their path. Mo Shuji raised his head and narrowed his eyes. He saw that the leader was a three-horned skyfiend. This three-horned skyfiend was none other than the three-horned skyfiend who was standing beside Zhuowen's tent in Burning Sky Star City's City Lord's mansion. He was the one who was supposed to manage Zhuowen's subordinate. However, he was intimidated by Zhuowen's demonic aura and retreated in embarrassment. You must be Mo Zhuo's subordinates. Since Mo Zhuo is not here, does that mean he's dead? The three-horned skyfiend's mouth was filled with a sinister smile as he unceremoniously mocked them. Mo Shuji coldly said, Lord Mo Zhuo cannot be dead. He's only acting alone. This is the battlefield with the immemorial god. Are you trying to find trouble with your own kind? This is a violation of military discipline, a crime of rebellion. The three-horned skyfiend sneered, Hand over the mid-level skyfiend's remains, and you can scram. What if I say no? Mo Shuji coldly said. No? Then you can only die. The three-horned skyfiend's eyes were cold. He did not think highly of Mo Shuji and the rest. He was afraid of Zhuowen. As long as Zhuowen was not here, these subordinates were nothing but chickens and pottery dogs. They were not worth mentioning. Chapter 4704. MOU. You're targeting us because Lord Mo Zhuo isn't here, right? Mo Suji said sinisterly. The three-horned heavenly demon called Mou grinned and said disdainfully, So what if Mo Zhuo is here? I can still kill him. Who does he think he is? Mo Suji sneered. If you're really not afraid of Lord Mo Zhuo, why were you so scared of Lord Mo Zhuo that you didn't even dare to speak in the Burning Heaven Star City's City Lord's mansion? As soon as he said that, Mo Suji and the 100 or so heavenly demon soldiers behind him mocked him without restraint. Mou was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He stared at Mo Suji with murderous intent. What a sharp-tongued little bastard. I didn't manage to teach you a lesson last time at the City Lord's mansion. Let's see if I don't teach you all a lesson this time. With that, Mou's muscles bulged as he charged at Mo Suji. Rolling demonic mist like sticky black water lingered around Mou's body. A powerful demonic aura burst out like a tide. Mo Suji sneered. Unwilling to be outdone, he also charged forward. Mou's mountain-like body was a stark contrast to Mo Suji's thin and small body. Almost no one doubted that the moment the two collided, Mo Suji's thin and small body would definitely be smashed into pieces. Not even a speck of dust would be left. Boom! The two collided, and a series of explosions sounded in the air. Terrifying rings of air were formed between the two and swept out in all directions. Gotcha! The ground caved in, forming a huge crater hundreds of feet deep. You're already a low-level heavenly demon? Mou snorted and retreated until he reached the edge of the crater. He looked at Mo Suji in fear. At this moment, Mo Suji stood in place, as steady as Mount Tai. His cold eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent. Mou, do you really think we're easy to bully? Everyone, get into formation and kill them all. Mo Suji roared as he took the lead and charged towards Mou. Demonic chi surged out from his body, making him look extremely terrifying. Mo Suji had devoured many heavenly demon hearts and improved rapidly. One had to know that the heart was where the essence of the heavenly demon lay. The effect of devouring the heart was far better than devouring other parts. Therefore, Mo Suji had already reached the peak of the lower realm. His capabilities were extremely terrifying. Although Mou had made some progress, his strength had not improved by much. It was not strange for Mo Suji to surpass him. This was especially true for Mou's subordinate. In fact, there weren't many of them left, and they were all defeated soldiers. On the other hand, Mo Suji's subordinates were practically unharmed, and each of them was even more powerful than before. The moment the two sides clashed, it was a one-sided situation. Mou's side was completely suppressed by Mo Suji's team. Mou's eyes turned red as he watched his subordinates fall one by one. Fear rose in his heart. He really couldn't figure it out. Mou was clearly no longer around. How could a troop that had lost its centurion still be so powerful? Especially that Mou. He was clearly just an ordinary heavenly devil, and an immature one at that. How could he grow so quickly? In less than 10 breaths of time, Mou's subordinates were completely wiped out. Only Mou was left as a commander without an army. Looking at the heavenly devil soldiers surrounding him, Mou began to regret. Why did he have to steal from Mou's team? Wait, we're all heavenly devil soldiers. This time we should unite against the immemorial gods. You don't have the right to kill me, Mou hurriedly said. Don't worry. After killing you, you'll become our nutrients and increase our strength. We'll also be able to kill more immemorial gods. This is also your contribution to the heavenly devil army. Accept your death in peace. Mou grinned. He took a step forward and charged at Mou. The surrounding heavenly devil army surrounded Mou in an orderly manner and began to deplete Mou's strength with battle techniques. In the end, Mou was exhausted. Mou found an opportunity and stabbed his claw into Mou's heart, pulling it out. I can't accept this. Mou glared at the cold Mou in front of him. After letting out an unwilling roar, his knees gave way and he knelt heavily on the ground. His head tilted to one side and he collapsed to the ground, completely losing his life force. Long live Lord Emoji! Long live Lord Emoji! The sky demon soldiers surrounded Mou and roared excitedly. Back then, when Mou was about to bully them in the city lord's mansion, they were powerless and could only watch as the former did whatever he wanted to them. Now, this existence that they could not resist at all was killed by them. All of the sky devil soldiers present felt elated, and they worshipped Mou even more. This is all thanks to Lord Mou. It has nothing to do with me. Mou's eyes were cold. After swallowing Mou's heart, he continued, Continue to search. We must find Lord Mou. Yes. The heavenly devil soldiers hurriedly responded in unison, their morale high. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, the entire golden cloud dragon array shook violently. It was as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. Everyone in the array, be it the heavenly devil soldiers or the primordial gods, were affected and almost fell down. What's going on? Mou suddenly raised his head and looked behind the golden cloud dragon array. The terrifying commotion was coming from there. Not only Mou, but the entire heavenly devil army and the primordial gods were alarmed by the commotion behind the golden cloud dragon array. Boom! Boom! The commotion grew louder and louder, as if the heavens and earth were falling apart and the sun and moon were dimmed. At that moment, Zhuowen, who was treating the injured in the camp on the other side of the natural moat, also heard the terrifying commotion. What's going on? Zhuowen raised his head and looked outside, his face full of doubt. Ma Yujie stood not far from Zhuowen with a similarly puzzled expression. Seeing that the commotion was growing louder and louder, Zhuowen couldn't help but run out of the camp to the tall walls at the edge of the natural moat. This is... When Zhuowen's gaze fell on the golden cloud dragon array, his pupils shrank to the size of needles. At the front of the golden cloud dragon formation, a demonic mist that was no weaker than the golden clouds inside the golden cloud dragon formation surged out. This demonic fog grew thicker and thicker until it seemed to be on par with the golden clouds. What in the world is this? Zhuowen frowned. Looking around, he found that the other primordial gods were also dumbfounded. Suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted from the main hall in the center of the camp. A petite figure flew out and appeared not far from Zhuowen, solemnly looking at the demonic fog in front of the golden cloud dragon array. Chapter 4705. Lord Zhensu. Lord Jinsu. On the city walls, many of the soldiers standing on the turrets bowed to the petite figure. The petite figure was none other than the constellation god of Jinsu. Damn it! Shadowless Mo really has some tricks up his sleeve. He's been planning this for a long time. The constellation god of Jinsu's face was extremely gloomy, and there was a trace of worry between her brows. Zhuowen didn't know if it was an illusion, but he actually saw a trace of fear in the depths of the constellation god's eyes. Lord Jinsu, what is that? Zhuowen asked curiously. The constellation god of Jinsu sighed. If I'm not wrong, that should be the heretic demon god's descent unique to the heavenly demons. I have to say that Shadowless Mo is willing to do anything to break the golden cloud dragon array. Heretic demon god's descent? Zhuowen was puzzled. He knew nothing about the heretic demon god's descent, so he was naturally curious. The heretic demon god's descent is like this. The constellation god of Jinsu's face was solemn as she quietly explained to Zhuowen. The so-called heretic demon god's descent was to sacrifice the lives of countless heavenly demons in a special way to summon a terrifying demonic shadow. It was said that the more heavenly demons were sacrificed, the more terrifying the demonic shadow would be. This time, Shadowless Mo had specially gathered more than 10 million heavenly demons and sacrificed them all to the heretic demon god. The demonic shadow he summoned was far more terrifying than the previous ones. Are the 10 million heavenly demons really willing to be sacrificed to the heretic demon god to summon a demonic shadow? Zhuowen asked curiously. Of course not, but Shadowless Mo deliberately hid this matter. Otherwise, who would be willing to become cannon fodder? The constellation god of Jinsu frowned. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, in front of the golden cloud dragon array, terrifying roars resounded from the endless demonic mist. Zhuowen looked into the distance and saw a massive demonic shadow appear on the other side of the chasm. This demonic shadow was extremely huge. Its height was almost the same as the heavenly moat, and it was on par with the enormous golden cloud dragon formation. Zhuowen took a closer look. In the billowing demonic fog, the demonic shadow looked more like a hideous skeleton. There were many different demonic voices mixed in. It was as if the demonic shadow was formed by many demons. Roar. The instant the demonic shadow appeared, an earth-shattering dragon roar resounded within the golden cloud dragon array. A gigantic golden dragon roared out, parting the golden clouds as it began to attack the demonic shadow without restraint. The demonic shadow let out an earth-shattering roar and engaged in a fierce battle with the golden dragon. Immediately, a terrifying battle spread throughout the entire golden cloud dragon formation. Shockwaves from the battle spread out in all directions like a tide. The great golden cloud dragon formation had been turned upside down. The rolling golden clouds were constantly being blasted apart, causing the great golden cloud dragon formation to become much thinner. Within the formation, the battle between the celestial demon army and the primordial god army became much clearer. But the battle was too terrifying. The billowing shockwaves had already affected the battlefield. Many primordial gods and celestial demons were pulverized, unable to be more dead. Hurry and have the primordial god army retreat to the heavenly moat. The constellation god's gaze was grave as he shouted at the primordial god soldiers on the surrounding forts. Yes. Many primordial god soldiers came to their senses and hurriedly ordered the army to retreat to the heavenly moat. Under the orders of the primordial god soldiers, who had been bitterly fighting the celestial demon army retreated into the depths of the heavenly moat. The celestial demon army didn't give chase. Instead, they all fled outside the formation. The demonic shadow's might was too terrifying. If they continued to stay in the formation, they would sooner or later be wiped out by the shockwaves from the battle between the golden dragon and the demonic shadow. No, what is this? This demonic fog is absorbing my demonic energy. Many of the celestial demon soldiers fled to the edge of the formation in a panic. Just as they were about to leave the formation, they came into contact with the billowing demonic fog and were instantly sucked dry, turning into dried corpses. Many of the celestial demon soldiers behind saw this scene and stopped in their tracks. They looked fearfully at the demonic fog at the edge of the formation. Although the demonic fog was constantly corroding the golden clouds within the formation, the celestial demon army thought they could use the demonic fog to leave the formation. They didn't expect that the demonic fog would attack them and erode their life force. Lord Shuji, what's going on? Why is the demonic fog attacking our celestial demon army? Emo Shuji's group immediately stopped in their track. One of the celestial demons looked fearfully at the scene before him. Not only this celestial demon, but the rest of the celestial demon army also showed fear. They were all shocked by the billowing demonic fog in front of them. They couldn't understand. The demonic fog should be on their side. Why would it attack them? Not good. The demonic fog is sweeping over. It's coming for us. The celestial demon army, who had stopped in their tracks, suddenly realized that the demonic fog seemed to have a life of its own. It was rushing towards them at high speed. Everywhere it passed, the celestial demons were sucked dry of their demonic energy and turned into dried corpses. Run! Emo Shuji's face was gloomy. He led his subordinates and ran towards the depths of the Golden Cloud Dragon formation. Many of the celestial demon army also ran in other directions. Unfortunately, the direction of the Golden Cloud Dragon formation was basically shrouded by the demonic fog. Once they moved forward, they would be sucked dry immediately. Many of the celestial demon army had the same thought as Emo Shuji and started running towards the depths of the formation. Now that the demonic shadow and golden dragon were fighting, the golden clouds and demonic fog were equally matched. Naturally, the deeper they went into the formation, the harder it was for the demonic fog to invade. However, the depths of the formation were the territory of the primordial gods. The deeper the celestial demon army went, the more concentrated the cannon fire they would face. They also suffered heavy casualties. Emo Shuji led his group and ran towards the depths of the formation. At the same time, they were also defending against the dense cannon fire. Even though Emo Shuji and his group were proficient in battle tactics, there were still some casualties. Lord Shuji, it looks like we're dead for sure. There's no way out. A celestial demon following behind Emo Shuji said with a pale face. Fight with me to the end. As long as we're still alive, we'll fight and carve out a bloody path. Emo Shuji's eyes were still resolute. Perhaps influenced by Emo Shuji, the dozens of celestial demon soldiers were filled with fighting spirit. The depression and despair from before had completely vanished. Right here. Suddenly, Emo Shuji stopped. He was at the center of the formation. This was the boundary between the demonic fog and the golden clouds. The demonic fog could not pass through, and the golden clouds could not enter. The two had reached a certain balance. Emo Shuji used the battle tactics Zhuowen had taught him over and over again, barely managing to resist the cannon fire. Although they were surrounded by danger, they were still temporarily safe. That old bastard Emo Wuying. We must have been sold out by him. Emo Shuji cursed viciously. He recalled Zhuowen's warning before entering the Golden Cloud Dragon formation. He knew that Lord Emo Zhuo had probably already sensed it. Unfortunately, he did not understand Lord Emo Zhuo's warning. Chapter 4706. Emo Shuji knew that Shadowless Emo had sold out the entire heavenly demon army when he saw that even his fellow heavenly demons had been devoured by him. Although he did not know what that terrifying demonic shadow was, he knew that it must have been summoned by sacrificing the lives of many heavenly demon army soldiers. Lord Shuji, what should we do now? The heavenly demon soldiers behind Emo Shuji all looked terrified, not knowing what to do. Sigh. We can only take it one step at a time. I regret not listening to Lord Emojua back then. Emoshuji sighed softly, but he was not depressed. Instead, his eyes became more determined. Emoshuji's character was much more tenacious than ordinary heavenly demons. He was as indomitable as a bamboo. No matter how difficult the situation was, he would not show any despair. It was precisely this personality of his that allowed him to quickly reorganize the heavenly demon army after Zhuo Wen's departure and become the leader that everyone followed. Outside the golden cloud dragon formation, shadowless Mo hovered in the void far away, his hands behind his back. He stared unblinkingly at the formation in front of him, at the giant demonic shadow and the golden dragon that were constantly fighting. Mo Wuba and the other heavenly demon powerhouses stood respectfully not far behind shadowless Mo. All of them had their heads lowered, their expressions complicated. General Shadowless, the demon god's descent technique is a forbidden technique. Why didn't you discuss it with us before you decided to use it? Mo Wuba's eyes flickered. In the end, he decided to say what was on his mind. Shadowless Mo did not even turn his head. He asked a strange question. Mo Wuba, how many times have we attacked nature's moat? Mo Wuba was stunned. He said in a low voice, a total of 49 times. Shadowless Mo sighed softly. That's right. It's been 49 times and I've failed every time. The king is very disappointed in me after failing so many times. If I fail again this time, I'm afraid the king will remove me from my position or even kill me. At this point, Shadowless Mo slowly turned his head and stared at Mo Wuba. He continued, the king is someone who will not tolerate even a grain of sand in his eyes. He has already given me 49 chances. If I fail the 50th time, what do you think will happen to me? Mo Wuba lowered his head but did not reply. Heaven's moat was the most important and most difficult line of defense for the primordial gods. Once they did, occupying the entire ancient star system would not pose too much of a problem. By then, it would only be a matter of time before the northern 7 constellations star region fell. However, the primordial god was too tenacious. The golden cloud dragon formation that he had set up on the natural moat was also too powerful. It blocked the sky demon army's attacks time and time again. Mo Wuying knew that no matter how many heavenly devil armies he sent out, no matter how strong the devil generals were, they might not be able to successfully take down Heaven's moat. This was because the golden cloud dragon formation was too powerful. It was not a problem that could be solved with numbers. Only by summoning the truly great demonic god's shadow could they completely contend against the golden cloud dragon formation. Demon God's Descent was a forbidden secret technique that the heavenly devil clan feared. This secret technique was to sacrifice the lives of heavenly demons to summon a strange demonic shadow. The more heavenly demons were sacrificed, the more powerful and terrifying the demonic shadow would be. Even though the heavenly devil clan's hierarchy was strict, and high-tier heavenly demons had the absolute right to kill low-tier heavenly demons, this secret technique was still forbidden. This was because a powerful heavenly demon had once tried this secret technique and sacrificed hundreds of millions of heavenly demons to summon an extremely terrifying demonic shadow. This led to the bloody massacre of the heavenly devil clan. The most terrifying thing was that the demonic shadow had broken free from the heavenly demon's control and devoured the heavenly demon who had summoned it. Furthermore, it massacred a large number of heavenly demons, causing the heavenly devil clan to suffer heavy losses. In the end, it was the heavenly demon king who stepped in and sacrificed many devil generals to chase the demonic shadow back into the depths of the void. Ever since this massacre, the heavenly devil clan had set the demon god's descent as a forbidden secret technique. If anyone used this forbidden technique, they would suffer the merciless punishment of the heavenly demon king. General Wuying, if news of this reaches the king, I'm afraid, Mo Wuba said worriedly. Mo Wuying calmly said, I've already made up my mind. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made the decision to use this secret technique. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, within the great golden cloud dragon formation, the battle between the demonic shadow and the golden dragon had reached its climax. The commotion caused by the battle between the two became more and more terrifying. Countless rocks rolled down from the deep and sturdy moat, and a portion of it even collapsed and fell. Sigh. The number of heavenly demon soldiers summoned this time is still too little. If there are hundreds of millions of them, the great golden cloud dragon formation will definitely be broken. Seeing the demonic shadow and the golden dragon still trembling in front of him, Mo Wuying muttered to himself regretfully. Mo Wuba's heart was thumping wildly. He was completely shocked by Mo Wuying's words. Back then, when the massacre was caused, the demonic shadow was summoned by sacrificing hundreds of millions of heavenly demons. It was not something that could be controlled. It could easily escape from control and cause indelible damage to the heavenly devil clan. He did not think that Mo Wuying would dare to have this idea. However, Mo Wuba naturally did not dare to refute him. After all, he was only a deputy commander and had no right to refute Mo Wuying. Boom, 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 boom. The tall city walls opposite the moat were all affected by the aftershocks of the battle. They began to crack and shatter, sending countless rocks flying everywhere. Many of the primordial gods retreated far enough as they watched the cannons on the city walls explode one by one. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade also retreated far enough. This battle was too terrifying. It was not something that the three of them could interfere with. Zhuo Xiaoyu. The moat might not be able to hold on for much longer. Next, please leave the moat and head to other places in the northern 7 constellations starfield. This is not a place to stay for long. Suddenly, the constellation god of the Chariot constellation appeared not far from Zhuo Wen's group. He looked at Zhuo Wen with a serious gaze. Zhuo Wen was silent for a moment, but did not say anything. He knew very well that the constellation god was right. He was too weak. If he stayed here, he would only be cannon fodder. Leaving the moat now was the best choice. Otherwise, he would not even be able to leave when the time came. Lord Constellation God. The Golden Cloud Dragon formation is very powerful. It might not be broken, Zhuo Wen said. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by the Constellation God. I know the Golden Cloud Dragon formation's situation better than you. I'm afraid it won't be able to hold on for much longer. The Constellation God took out a ring from her bosom and handed it to Zhuo Wen. Take good care of this. Open it when we reach a safe place. After saying that, the Constellation God pointed his sword finger at Zhuo Wen's forehead. I've already taught you the method to open the ring. Remember, you must wait until you reach a safe place before opening it. There's something inside that will be useful to you. Chapter 4707. After giving her instructions, the constellation god of Zhen constellation slowly stood up. Generals and soldiers. Heaven's Moat is the most important stronghold of the 7 constellations starfield. We cannot lose it. Today, I am prepared to die in battle. I swear to defend Heaven's Moat with my life. The constellation god of the Chariot constellation's lofty voice resounded like thunder in the ears of the primordial gods. However, I will not force any of you. If any of you wish to leave now, you may do so. I will not stop you. After speaking, the constellation god looked around. The primordial god soldiers raised their heads and looked at the constellation god with determined eyes. Lord Constellation God, we are the same as you. We swear to defend Heaven's Moat with our lives. That's right. Life is nothing compared to dignity. We must defend the dignity that belongs to us primordial gods. All the primordial god soldiers were filled with fighting spirit. None of them were willing to retreat. A gratified smile appeared on the corner of the constellation god's mouth, and then he looked at Zhuo Ma Yujie and Ziyu. Leave. You cannot die here. There are more important missions waiting for you in the future. With that, the constellation god shouted, Soldiers, follow me. Today, we shall bathe in blood and leave our names in the annals of history. Boom. The constellation god turned into a stream of light and charged towards Jin Yunlong. Endless starlight scattered, forming a huge and resplendent nebula around him. Boom. The constellation god of Zhen constellation thrust out his right palm, and the huge nebula that surrounded him spun rapidly and blasted towards the demonic shadow in front of him. Boom. 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 The spinning nebula was extremely powerful. It was as if it could cut everything in the world into fine powder. The demonic shadow was instantly split into two. The demonic shadow's aura instantly weakened and was completely suppressed by the golden dragon. The golden dragon was also very intelligent. It took this opportunity to bite off the demonic shadow's upper body. However, the demonic shadow could not fuse back into one immediately. In an instant, the originally evenly matched battle became completely one-sided. The demonic shadow was pinned to the ground by the golden dragon and could only retaliate a few times. The constellation god? Outside the array, Mo Wuying narrowed his eyes, a trace of viciousness appearing in the depths of his eyes. Looks like the demonic shadow is giving Zhen Su a lot of pressure. It actually forced him to personally come out and stop it. Magic Martial Ba said coldly. Shadowless Mo grinned and said, That's great. The demon god was not so easily destroyed. Since the chariot constellation has come out, then let's play with him. As soon as he finished speaking, Shadowless Mo's body erupted with boundless devil mist. His body and physique instantly expanded by several times as he strode towards the constellation god. Mo Wuba and many other heavenly demon upper echelons also followed closely behind. Each of them had a monstrous demonic aura, and their auras were like rainbows. At this moment, the constellation god of the chariot constellation grabbed at the void with her right hand, and nebulas began to appear around her. Every single nebula was enormous and terrifying. Moreover, they were rotating at high speeds. Every single one of them possessed terrifying might and caused everyone to be shocked. Nebula explosion. The constellation god's eyes were cold as he clenched his right hand in the air. Instantly, the massive nebulas around him exploded, setting off a terrifying explosion of energy. The lower half of Shadowless Mo's body was almost destroyed by the explosion. It scattered into countless devil mist and dispersed in all directions. However, the constellation god soon noticed that the devil mist that had been blown apart was showing signs of reforming. This devil mist is really strange. Is it unkillable? The constellation god's eyes were gloomy as her heart sank completely. Just as she was about to use her divine power to completely destroy the devil mist, several air-piercing sounds swept over and completely surrounded her. Chariot constellation. It's been a long time. You, the guy who likes to strategize behind the scenes, why have you joined the battle at the front lines? That's not your style. Shadowless Mo's body was covered in devil mist as he stared coldly at the constellation god with his scarlet eyes. The constellation god of the chariot constellation looked coldly at Shadowless Mo and said calmly, Shadowless Mo, you really don't know what's good for you. Demon God's Descent is a forbidden technique of the Heavenly Demon. How dare you use it? Aren't you afraid that the Heavenly Demon King will punish you? Shadowless Mo sneered and said, So what if I'm punished? As long as I can conquer Heaven's moat, I'll only be lightly punished at most. My merits will offset my faults. If you can't conquer it, then you'll be sentenced to death. You won't be able to escape death. The constellation god of the chariot constellation said calmly. Shadowless Mo laughed loudly and said, I've already thought about it. With the help of the demon god, I have an 80% chance of conquering Heaven's moat. So, Heaven's moat must be conquered by me today. After saying that, Cold killing intent exploded from the depths of Shadowless Mo's eyes as he quickly charged at the constellation god of the chariot constellation. The moment Shadowless Mo attacked, Mo Wuba and the other heavenly demon experts surrounded her. Boom! Countless resplendent starlight collided with the terrifying devil mist, and an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation erupted. The surrounding space was constantly torn apart and overlapped as if it was a piece of paper being folded over and over again. It looked extremely miserable. Bang! 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 The battle between Shadowless Mo and the constellation god of the chariot constellation became more and more intense, turning the entire heavens moat upside down. What made Shadowless Mo's face turn gloomy was that although the constellation god's strength was similar to his, she had all sorts of strange equipment on her. For example, she had a unique armor with many terrifying starlight cannons installed on it. There were also many puppets made of divine wood that fought with Mo Wuba and the others without being at a disadvantage. Among all the constellation gods, I hate fighting with you the most. Shadowless Mo's eyes were dark as he continued to fight with the constellation god of the chariot constellation. The constellation god of the chariot constellation was the constellation god who loved to invent things the most. She could create all sorts of powerful weapons. In the past, in many battles between gods and demons, the heavenly demons had suffered many losses due to the weapons created by the constellation god of the chariot constellation. The constellation god of the chariot constellation did not even bother to speak. She silently fought with Shadowless Mo, while her eyes were constantly on Mo Wuji below. When she realized that Mo Wuji's lower body had reformed, her expression turned ugly. At the same time, the primordial god army began a frenzied assault on the remaining heavenly demon army. This made things difficult for the heavenly demon army. Their retreat was blocked by the demonic fog, and their front was blocked by the primordial god army. Now, the only thing they could do was fight to the death with the primordial god army. Lord Shuji, what should we do? We've suffered too many losses. We're no match for the primordial god. Behind Mo Shuji, many heavenly demon soldiers were panicking. Don't fight them head-on. Let's retreat. Most of the demonic fog was dispersed by the constellation god of the chariot constellation. We can definitely find a way out. Mo Shuji was very calm. He had been paying attention to the battle between the constellation god of the chariot constellation and Mo Wuji. After the demonic fog was dispersed, he could see that there was a corresponding gap in the demonic fog. Go. Slowly retreat from the battlefield. Don't be too obvious. Fight as you retreat. After Mo Shuji finished speaking, he slowly retreated with his subordinates. Chapter 4708. Mo Shuji was extremely cautious. He retreated as he fought, and even though his subordinates were injured, none of them had died in battle. By the time the celestial demon army was reduced to a few, Mo Shuji and the others had already retreated to the edge of the array. At this moment, the demonic mist at the edge of the array had mostly dissipated, and many gaps had appeared. However, the demonic mist in these gaps had begun to condense again, as if it was trying to block the gap again. Run! Mo Shuji roared, and led his subordinates into the gap at the back. They began to search for openings within the gap, hoping to exchange for a chance of survival. The archaic demon army, who had been beating the dogs while they were down, stopped when they reached the edge of the array. They had no intention of continuing the chase. The demonic mist was too restrictive for them, so they didn't dare to chase into the mist and lose their lives for nothing. Mo Shuji continued to rush into the gap, and there were many times when he was almost surrounded by the demonic mist, but he cleverly avoided it. His subordinates, on the other hand, weren't so lucky. They constantly came into contact with the demonic mist and were all sucked dry. Mo Shuji wanted to save them, but there was nothing he could do. The demonic mist around him was changing too quickly, and if he turned back to save them, he would probably die in there as well. When Emo Shuji forced his way out of the demonic mist and the array, he was shocked to find that his subordinates had all died in the demonic mist. He was the only one who had managed to walk out of the demonic mist. Emo Wuing. Emo Shuji clenched his fists tightly as he looked up at Emo Wuing, who was fighting the constellation god of Zhen constellation, and roared in his heart. He hated Emo Wuing to the core. If this person hadn't used a forbidden technique, his subordinates who had gone through life and death with him wouldn't have died. During this period of time, he had long regarded his subordinates as brothers that he could entrust his life to. But now they were all dead. How could Emo Shuji not be heartbroken? However, Emo Shuji was very calm. He didn't act rashly and quickly calmed down. He adjusted his sleeves and silently left the battlefield. However, the seed of hatred had been planted in his heart. Once it took root and sprouted, Emo Shuji would return and kill the true culprits who had killed his subordinate. On the other side of the heavenly moat, Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade stood alone in the collapsed ruins above the moat. The army of the ancient gods had been completely mobilized. Aside from the three of them, there was no one else in the tent. It was empty and desolate. Brother Zhua, it's time for us to go. Ma Yujie couldn't help but remind Zhuowen when he saw him standing still. The battle between the gods and devils had reached its climax. Both sides had reached the point where their lives were at stake. This was no longer something they could intervene in. The three of them could only leave this place. Otherwise, if they stayed, they would only become cannon fodder. Zhuowen looked at the ring on his palm and said firmly, "Let's go!" Not long after Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Purple Jade left, the battle between the constellation god and shadowless Mo spread to the heavenly moat's camp. Inside the primordial god's camp, the exquisite and magnificent palaces collapsed one after another, turning into ruins. The battle between shadowless Mo and the constellation god had reached its climax. Demonic energy and divine power intertwined in the void, forming a terrifying storm of explosions. Rip! Suddenly, there was the terrifying sound of cloth being torn apart. A huge hole was torn open in the huge golden cloud dragon array, and the rolling golden clouds dispersed to both sides. The constellation god sent shadowless Mo flying with a palm strike, then looked down at the huge demonic claw below in horror. This demonic claw was formed from the lower half of shadowless Mo's body. Upon closer inspection, the lower half of shadowless Mo's body had reformed into a complete shadowless Mo. The upper half of shadowless Mo's body, which was originally entangled with the golden dragon, had also transformed into a complete shadowless Mo. Moreover, the two new shadowless Mo's auras were like rainbows, even stronger than before. After tearing a hole in the formation, the demon claw plunged into the formation and crushed many of the primeval gods to dust. What? Why is the shadowless Mo's still growing stronger? The constellation god's face was filled with disbelief, and his eyes were terrifyingly gloomy. Ha! The descent of the demon god is far more terrifying than you can imagine. It's all thanks to your primordial god army that you slaughtered so many heavenly demon soldiers in the array. After the demon god's shadowless Mo received a large amount of nourishment, he became even stronger. Shadowless Mo laughed without restraint, his eyes filled with mockery and ridicule. As expected of the heavenly demon clan, you can talk about killing your own race so casually. The constellation god said coldly. We heavenly demons aren't as pedantic as you primordial gods. We only believe in our own strength. If sacrificing our own race for victory is a very worthwhile method. Shadowless Mo said calmly. That's why you're no different from animals. If scum like you rule the primordial star system, you'll only make the primordial star system a mess, and the people won't be able to make a living. The constellation god said coldly. Shadowless Mo sneered. Whatever you say. The winner is king and the loser is a bandit. As long as we heavenly demons win, we're the truth. No matter what you say, it won't change the fact that you're the losers. Rip, rip. Within the array, the ripping sounds became more and more frequent. The huge golden cloud dragon array was being torn apart continuously. Damn it! The constellation god wanted to stop him, but he was firmly entangled by Shadowless Mo and couldn't get away. Old man, your opponent is us. It won't be that easy for you to escape. Shadowless Mo laughed sinisterly. He joined forces with Mo Wuba and the other heavenly demon experts to launch a fierce attack on the constellation god. The constellation god used all his means to resist the fierce attacks of Shadowless Mo and the others. Meanwhile, he silently transmitted the situation of the battle to the primordial god's headquarters. Sacred Star City was the core city of the northern 7 constellations, Starfield. It was also the place where many constellation gods gathered. Ever since the other starfields were conquered by the heavenly demon army, many of the 28 constellation gods had fallen. The remaining constellation gods were no longer scattered. Instead, they gathered in the same Sacred Star City. In the end, they chose Sacred Star City to be their permanent residence. Since then, Sacred Star City had become the true core of the northern 7 constellations, Starfield. The primordial god's army had to obey orders from here. At this moment, in the depths of Sacred Star City, in a grand hall, constellation gods with powerful auras sat on a huge round table. The atmosphere in the hall was terrifyingly quiet. No one made a sound. All the constellation gods' gazes fell on the imposing figure sitting at the head of the table, as if waiting for him to speak. Chapter 4709. This imposing figure was actually not very tall. He looked like an ordinary gray-robed elder. However, his eyes were even more resplendent than the stars, and the aura emanating from his body far surpassed that of the other constellation gods present, causing his image to become much taller and more imposing. He was the leader of the 7 constellations of the East, the Horned Constellation God. He was the temporary leader of the constellation gods. The reason why everyone treated the Horned Constellation God as their temporary leader was because he was the strongest of the constellation gods. Everyone. There's news from the Chariot constellation. Shadowless Mo has used the forbidden technique, Demon God's Descent. I'm afraid the Golden Cloud Dragon formation won't last much longer. The Horned Constellation God's expression was very serious. He spoke slowly, but it caused an uproar. Demon God's Descent? This Mo Wuing was way too crazy, wasn't he? Even within the Heavenly Fiend clan, this secret skill was a forbidden skill that could cause great suffering. Is Shadowless Mo not afraid of the Heavenly Demon King's punishment? A burly constellation god with a fiery temper slammed the table and roared angrily. If one looked closely, they would see that this constellation god had 2 horns on his head. From afar, he looked like a bull. Bull constellation god. Calm down. You're always like this. We can tolerate it, but this table is going to be smashed by you. Beside the bull constellation god was a beautiful and charming woman. She glanced at the hot-tempered bull constellation god and spoke with disdain. Female constellation god. Are you mocking me? Fight me one-on-one if you have the gut. I'll beat you until you cry for your parents. The bull constellation god's temper flared up, and no one could stop him. He kept shouting at the beautiful woman. The female constellation god rolled her eyes. She couldn't be bothered with this reckless bull. All right. The Heavenly Moat is the most important fortress of the 7 constellations, Starfield. We can't lose it. The Horned Constellation God frowned and continued, Bull Constellation, Female Constellation, I see that you two are very enthusiastic. I'll send you to reinforce the Heavenly Moat this time. Remember, bring more than 10 immemorial divine array masters. Got it? The Bull Constellation God was eager. He said, Hee, that's exactly what I wanted. Thank you, Lord Jiao Su. On the other hand, the female host had an ugly expression on her face. She rolled her eyes at Niu Su fiercely and muttered, "This stupid cow made me run to the front line. I hate fighting with others the most. It's easy to dirty my hands. Go quickly." Using the star path to go to the heavenly moat immediately, the chariot mansion might not be able to last long. If anything happens to heaven's moat this time, both of you will be punished together. Understood? The Horn constellation god's expression turned solemn. His body exuded a powerful aura, causing all the constellation gods present to feel apprehensive. Yes. Niu Su and Nu Su stood up and agreed solemnly. Grumbling was grumbling, but they knew the big picture and knew that this matter could not be taken lightly. Go. I'll wait for your good news. Mansion Jiao waved his sleeves and left. Niu Su and Nu Su looked at each other and revealed a determined expression. After that, they left with large strides. As for the other constellation gods, they naturally dispersed as well. Four Symbol Star City was the city closest to Heaven's Moat. Zhuowen, Ma Yujie, and Ziyu had traveled nonstop for several months before arriving at this star city. It had to be said that the ancient star system's territory was too vast. Four Symbol Star City did not look far on the map, but as they traveled, Zhuowen realized how vast it was. After the three of them entered Four Symbol Star City, they finally obtained information about Heaven's Moat. This battle had ended several months ago. It was said that Sacred Star City had sent Niu Su and Nu Su, the two constellation gods, to provide assistance. In the end, an unprecedented battle broke out. In the end, Mo Wuying escaped with heavy injuries. Mo Wuba and the other deputy commanders of the Heavenly Demon Army were killed one after another. Although Heaven's Moat was saved in the end, the Golden Cloud Dragon Array was nearly half destroyed. It would probably take a long time to repair it. What shocked Zhuowen and Ma Yujie the most was that in order to stop Mo Wuying, the constellation god used some kind of secret technique and burned half of her lifespan to finally destroy Mo Wuying. However, the constellation god was also heavily injured and fell into a coma, falling into a state of near death. It was said that the constellation god had been brought back to Sacred Star City by the two constellation gods for treatment. As for the details, no one knew. In order to save Heaven's Moat, Lord Constellation God actually disregarded his life. This. In a simple and crude inn in Four Symbol Star City, Ma Yujie shook his head and sighed endlessly. During this period of time in Heaven's Moat camp, although they did not have much contact with the constellation god, they all knew that the latter had actually been secretly taking care of them. In the end, it was also the constellation god who allowed them to leave Heaven's Moat and escape death. Zhuowen also did not feel good. Although he wanted to see the constellation god, he also knew that with his current status and strength, he could not even reach Sacred Star City, let alone get close to the constellation god. Brother Zhua, I remember that Lord Constellation God gave you a ring. What's in there? Ma Yujie suddenly said. Zhuowen came back to his senses and hurriedly took out the pitch-black ring from the Great World. Back then, before the constellation god of the Zhen constellation left, she had told him that the ring could only be opened after reaching a safe place. He had also said that the things inside the ring were useful to him. Mu Feng followed the method taught by the constellation god and formed a complicated hand seal in front of the ring. Strange cracking sounds could be heard as ripples appeared on the surface of the ring. After which, the ripples gradually dissipated. It's opened. Zhuowen's eyes lit up, and he immediately sent his consciousness into the ring to check it carefully. After checking it, a complicated and strange look appeared in his eyes. Brother Zhua, what's inside? Ma Yujie asked excitedly. It's a piece of paper. Zhuowen waved his sleeve, and a piece of paper emitting golden light appeared in his palm. Ah, just a piece of paper? There's nothing else? Ma Yujie could not help but be stunned, and he looked at the golden paper in Zhuowen's palm with a strange look. If you don't believe me, you can look at the ring yourself. Zhuowen casually threw the ring to Ma Yujie, and the latter hurriedly looked at it carefully. Lord Constellation God is one of the constellation gods. How can he be so stingy and only give a piece of paper? Ma Yujie put down the ring and said dejectedly. Zhuowen looked at the golden paper in his hand with bright eyes. He knew very well that the constellation god had given it to him so carefully. Then, this golden paper was definitely extraordinary. Zhuowen stared at the golden paper without blinking. After an unknown period of time, he found that some words seemed to have appeared on the surface of the paper. Chapter 47:10. There are words on the golden paper. Ma Yujie stood up abruptly and came closer. He stared at the golden paper in Zhuowen's hand with excitement in his eyes. Ziyu also walked over curiously. However, after looking at it for a long time, she couldn't recognize the words on the paper. What are these words? Zhuowen frowned. The words on the golden paper were very unfamiliar to him. He didn't even recognize them. These are ancient words of the immemorial star system. They're extremely ancient words and are completely different from the words used by the immemorial god. Ma Yujie said solemnly. Zhuowen looked at Ma Yujie in surprise. He didn't expect Ma Yujie to know the ancient words of the immemorial star system. Don't look at me like that. I've studied the ancient words of the immemorial star system before. That's why I know them. Ma Yujie said with a shrug. Then tell me, what's written on the golden paper? Zhuowen asked expectantly. Ma Yujie carefully observed the words on the golden paper and said, the content recorded here is very simple. That is, the things that Lord Jin Su left for us are in the sun-traversing star city. There's also the corresponding slogan and specific address on it. Also, this golden paper is extraordinary. It contains the powerful aura of Lord Jin Su. With this golden paper in hand, as long as it's not a constellation god, we shouldn't have to worry about our lives. Ma Yujie smiled and handed the golden paper back to Zhuowen. Looks like we're going to the sun-traversing star city. But where is it? Do you know? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Ma Yujie sighed softly and said, if I remember correctly, the sun-traversing star city should be in the northernmost part of the 7 constellations star region. It's extremely far from the 4-symbol star city. Then wouldn't it be much faster if we go through the star path? Zhuowen asked. That's true. However, the star path is extremely expensive. The further the distance, the more expensive it is. Ma Yujie shrugged. Only then did Zhuowen realize that they had been penniless ever since they had entered the primordial star system. Not to mention using the star path, they couldn't even afford to stay in an inn. The pitiful amount of divine stones they had were given to him by some soldiers in the barracks out of gratitude. Of course, there weren't many divine stones. After all, Zhuowen didn't take many. Furthermore, those soldiers were at the bottom of the hierarchy, so it was impossible for them to have too many divine stones to give to him. Let's go find out the price of the star path. Zhuowen stood up and prepared to head to the star orbit teleportation point with Ma Yujie. They didn't take the cub with them. After leaving the cub in the inn, the two of them left. The star orbit teleportation point of 4-symbol Star City was located in the central palace of Star City. The only difference was that the star orbit of the Burning Heaven Star City was surging with devil chi, as if it had been polluted by devil chi. Outside the central divine palace, there were 2 soldiers in shining armor, blocking Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's path. Are you 2 going to use the star path? One of the soldiers sized up Zhuowen and Ma Yujie. He found that their auras were extremely weak and their clothes were very simple. He couldn't help but ask, "Brother, I'm sorry. We're here to ask about the price of the star path. How many divine stones do we need to go to sun-traversing Star City?" Ma Yujie asked with a smile. The soldier sized up Ma Yujie with a strange look and said, Sun-traversing Star City is the northernmost city in the northern 7 constellations star region. If you want to use the star path, you need 20,000 divine stones. Do you have so many divine stones? Zhuowen and Ma Yujie looked at each other. They were shocked by the soldier's words. 20,000 divine stones? That was too expensive. It wasn't something they could afford. They only had slightly more than 100 divine stones on them. Even the inn they stayed in was the most simple and crude. How could they have extra money to use the star path? The soldier observed their expressions and saw the hesitation on Zhuowen and Ma Yujie's faces. He said impatiently, Since you can't afford it, then leave quickly. Poor people like you can't afford to use the star path. You might as well take a starship. Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists at the soldier and said, Brother, may I know what this starship you're talking about is? Where is it? The soldier was stunned. He obviously didn't expect Zhuowen to ask such a stupid question. In the primeval star system, how could anyone not know what a starship was? The Starship Ferry is in the East District. You'll naturally find it there. Although the soldier was very impatient, he still pointed to the east. Obviously, he wanted Zhuowen and Ma Yujie to leave quickly. Zhuowen cupped his fists at the soldier and headed toward the East District with Ma Yujie. 4 Symbols Star City was divided into 5 districts. The central shrine where the star path was located in the central district of 4 Symbols Star City. Meanwhile, the East District was a more impoverished district. The buildings in this district were obviously more dilapidated and shorter than those in the other districts. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were naturally not unfamiliar with this place. It was because their inn was also in the East District. I didn't expect there to be something like a starship in the East District. Let's go back to the inn and ask the innkeeper, Ma Yujie suggested. Zhuowen nodded. The price of the star path was really too high. Even if they were to earn divine stones, they didn't know when they'd be able to gather 20,000 divine stones. Moreover, the price of a starship should be much cheaper. They naturally chose the latter. The innkeeper they were staying in was a fat old man with a brandy nose. He always had a smile on his face, and his attitude toward his guests was also very modest and amiable. When Zhuowen and Ma Yujie found him and asked about the starship, the innkeeper enthusiastically introduced it to the two of them. As it turned out, there were 2 main methods of travel in the immemorial star system. They were the star path and the starship. The star path was similar to a teleportation formation. It was extremely fast and could be reached in the blink of an eye. However, it was extremely expensive. Many ordinary immemorial gods couldn't afford it at all. Meanwhile, the starship was another type of transportation. It was relatively cheaper and was the first choice of many immemorial gods. However, the disadvantage was that it was much slower than the star path. Of course, this was only relatively slow. The speed of a starship was many times faster than a high-grade immemorial god flying at full speed. However, as the immemorial star system was too vast, it would naturally take a lot of time for the starship to pass through many star cities. Moreover, the ticket for the starship was also relatively cheap. It was said that the ticket to pass through the Sun Star City cost about 700 to 800 divine stones. As for the exact price, the innkeeper wasn't too clear. The two of you, if you want to pass through the Sun Star City, it's best to take the starship. Although it will take a month, it's much cheaper than the star path. The innkeeper grinned, reminding Zhuowen and Ma Yujie in a friendly manner. Chapter 47:11. The starship ticket costs 800 divine stones. The 3 of us need a total of 2,400 divine stones. After Zhuowen and Ma Yujie returned to the inn from the ferry, they looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The price of a starship was indeed much cheaper than a star orbit, but to them, the price was still very high. All the divine stones they had now added up could not even afford a starship ticket. Brother Joie, looks like we need to earn some divine stones. Ma Yujie could not help staring at Zhuowen. What are you looking at me for? Zhuowen frowned slightly, having a bad premonition in his heart. Didn't you refine many divine pills when you were in the military camp? We can totally make a profit by selling divine pills. Ma Yujie grinned. Zhuowen smiled bitterly and said, What I refined can't be called divine pills. It's far from your immemorial star system's primordial divine pills. It's just refining the medicinal properties of ordinary divine medicines to become more condensed, forming the embryonic form of a medicinal pill. During the time in the military camp, after Zhuowen came into contact with primordial divine medicines, he continuously refined and familiarized himself with these primordial divine medicines. His alchemy level improved very quickly, reaching peak fifth firmament eternal in one go. But even so, it was basically impossible for him to refine primordial divine pills. After all, he had not even come into contact with the alchemy records in the immemorial star system. In the military camp, he completely relied on his own alchemy path to fumble around. The medicinal pills he refined were also far from genuine primordial divine pills. Ma Yujie smiled and said, I'm talking about selling this kind of medicinal pill. Don't you know how expensive primordial divine pills are in the immemorial star system? Especially those primordial alchemists, each and every one of them is very selfish. The divine pills they refine are all exorbitant. Moreover, when we're fighting, they ask for even more ruthlessly. Zhuowen's pupils constricted slightly, and he said in disbelief, Don't these primordial alchemists realize how grim the situation of the ancient gods is? Why are all of them so selfish? As Zhuowen saw it, the primordial gods had already reached the moment of life and death. If these primordial alchemists were careless, even if they were not willing to contribute for free, they should not demand such an exorbitant price. He finally understood why there was such a shortage of primordial divine pills in the barrack. The soldiers were using divine pills that had never been refined before. Ma Yujie smiled bitterly and said, How would I know what kind of brains these ancient alchemy masters have? In the immemorial star system, alchemists and array Dao divine masters have extremely high statuses. Even the constellation gods have to treat the alchemists with respect. This has caused those alchemists to become arrogant. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned and said, So, even in other star cities, there are very few primordial divine pills. Ma Yujie nodded and said, Yes, there are almost no sales at all. Those ancient gods who wish to obtain divine pills must personally pay a visit to the residence of a primordial alchemist. After offering a large amount of benefits, they might be able to request for some divine pills. Zhuowen revealed a pondering look, secretly thinking that the alchemists in this immemorial star system were much higher than those in the chaotic starry skies. Moreover, all of them were too arrogant, not even caring about righteousness. This made Zhuowen have no favorable impression of the ancient alchemist. Therefore, this is our chance. Although the medicinal pills you refine, Brother Joie, can't compare to genuine primordial divine pills, their medicinal properties are much better than primordial divine pills. Moreover, we just need to sell them at a low price, and the profits will still be very generous. Ma Yujie hurriedly said. Hearing that, Zhuowen also nodded, feeling that Ma Yujie's words were feasible. Next, Zhuowen and Ma Yujie asked the inn owner about the location of the pharmacy in the Four Symbols Star City. They learned from the inn owner that there were many medicinal stores in Four Symbols Star City, both big and small. It could be said that there was everything one could think of, and there were also many medicinal stores in the Eastern District where they were. Among them, the most famous was the Azure Sky Medicinal Store. The Azure Sky Medicinal Store was the most famous and also the largest medicinal store in the Eastern District. Most of the divine medicines were sold there. Zhuowen and Ma Yujie exchanged a glance and decided to head to the Azure Sky Medicinal Store to take a look. Although they did not have many divine stones on them, they thought of a way to work with the medicinal store directly. Zhuowen would help the medicinal store refine pills, and the medicinal store would help them sell the pills. They just needed to take a commission. They felt that the medicinal store should agree to such a good deal. After thanking the inn owner, the two of them found the street where the Azure Sky Medicinal Store was based on the address given by the inn owner. When they arrived at this street, the two of them discovered that both sides of this street were basically filled with medicinal stores. There were also roadside stalls set up, and all of them were selling divine medicines. So this is Medicine Street. It really lives up to its reputation. Ma Yujie stood at the entrance of the street, looking at the people coming and going on the street as well as the various medicinal stores and roadside stalls set up on both sides. His face was filled with excitement. That should be the Azure Sky Medicinal Store. Zhuowen pointed to the center of the street, where a huge pavilion stood out from the rest. There was an archway on top of it, with the words, Azure Sky, written on it. The two of them followed the flow of people and soon arrived in front of the Azure Sky Medicinal Store. As the largest medicinal store in Medicine Street, the Azure Sky Medicinal Store was naturally far more crowded than the other medicinal stores on the street. It was very lively inside. When the two of them entered the medicinal store, they found that it was very spacious inside. Rows of medicine cabinets were placed in the central area, and each medicine cabinet had a corresponding person in charge to fill the prescription for the buyer. The Azure Sky Medicinal Store was divided into 3 levels. The higher the level of the divine medicines, the lower the number of people. With Zhuowen and Ma Yujie, it was naturally impossible for them to reach the upper levels. They were enough to stay on the first level. Perhaps they felt that the auras of Zhuowen and Ma Yujie were too weak. The receptionist standing at the door did not stop the two of them from entering, but she did not take the initiative to greet them either. Ma Yujie was quite thick-skinned. He took the initiative to walk in front of a receptionist and asked in a low voice, "Miss, ask the steward of your medicinal store to come out. We have something important to discuss with your steward." This receptionist had a slender figure and wore a rather revealing cheongsam. Although she was smiling, her gaze when looking at Ma Yujie and Zhuowen was very cold. "I wonder what business you have with our steward?" The receptionist looked at Ma Yujie indifferently and asked rather disdainfully. "We have a big deal to do with your medicinal store. As long as this deal is done, your medicinal store's profits will more than double." Ma Yujie talked about how they could refine low-grade medicinal pills for the medicinal store and purify the medicinal properties of the divine medicines. When Ma Yujie finished talking, the receptionist's face was very cold. "Are you done?" the receptionist said coldly. "Miss, aren't you going to ask the steward to come out and talk to us?" Ma Yujie said with a frown. The receptionist sneered and said, "No need to talk. You all get lost. Do you think I can't see through this kind of deceit? It's just to cheat medicinal herbs. Do you really think that our Azure Sky Medicinal Store is a place where you can swindle people? If you still don't get lost, I will ask the guards of our medicinal store to chase you out. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.